sip of coffee real quick. People really enjoy it. This is a lot of fun live. And what I'm going to do is attempt to start a painting and get it as near to finished as possible. In fact, my goal will be to finish it. And then, you know, that's too easy, right? One painting. So I'm going to try to do 3 of them all at one time, 3 smallish paintings. And so that way you guys can see different color schemes and different ways of working and building up a painting. And it should be a lot of fun. It might be crazy since I've only got a couple hours sleep and I'm on a different time zone completely. But I say, let's go for it. Let's have fun today. And then I'll take feedback. And if during the week I go through and color up some of those from previous classes, I will go ahead and video that and put that onto the website. So that'll just be extra. And what I did was I went ahead and posted a time-lapse video of what I want to show you guys today. So I'm going to go ahead and do a quick screen share back to our Facebook page. All right. Everybody seeing Facebook?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So this is a quick teaser. You see the little video here, and I sent the link to everybody. Did anybody watch it already?
I did.
Okay. And you guys may have seen it previously, but I'm just going to go ahead and bring it up. It's just 5 minutes long. It's kind of like a preview for what I hope to accomplish today, except for the big change is that all 3 of the paintings in this example are fairly similar colors. And what I'm going to try to do is start one with a yellow background, one with a red background, and one with a purple background.
Oh, wow.
So we'll have different. I don't know why I'm doing this. That's lack of sleep talking.
Lack of sleep.
All right, so let's watch.
Hello, everybody. Just wanted to show you guys one of my favorite ways to start paintings and do them quickly with a lot of fun. Very creative. It's a combination of wiping away carving style and tips, where I'm bringing thicker paint over time. Very organic and pushing the paint, watching what happens. In my palette, there's a few different colors. Those are mostly old colors. In fact, some of them are fairly dry and tacky from previous paintings. So these are just a way to kind of loosen up for the day and use up some old paint. And a lot of times my leftover colors are really interesting. Maybe not exactly right for my next larger format painting, so it could be perfect for these little expressive guys. You can see now I'm basically building up the design, the composition, adding in values, trying to keep it to about 2, 3, 4 values max, keeping the shapes fairly large, and now just adding in some color. I like to get into the sky pretty early in the painting because the colors of the sky are going to dictate a lot of what's going on in the trees, grasses, and water. In fact, basically I'll paint the water and the sky at the same time, at least getting a lot of the same colors in. I like to lighten those background trees, pushing them back, kind of going towards a blue-gray, maybe sometimes a purple color, letting some of the warm colors show through as if the light's passing through them. All 3 of these paintings today are going to be backlit. The one on the right is going to be right, like the light is coming from the right side of the canvas. The one in the center here that I'm painting, I'm kind of imagining that the light is coming from the left side, outside of the canvas. And this guy here on the left painting, I'm just going to imagine that the sun's there smack dab right in the middle and reflecting down into the water, affecting the grasses and the edge quality of everything.
Is he moving? Oh, is he moving? Yes.
I don't normally paint on 3 paintings at a time, but 2 is pretty common. You can see my huge easel there can support multiple canvases or one very large one. I really love experimenting and playing with grays, the browns, the earthier colors. When I squeeze out my paints into the palette, I actually am using a split primary palette, 2 reds, 2 yellows, 2 blues, and white. But my leftover colors end up being these really interesting grays. So when I'm cleaning my palette after a painting, instead of scraping it all into one big pile of gray, brown, or green, I will scrape it into individual piles, kind of, these colors lean towards the blues or the greens, this pile leans towards the purples or the reds. And that's how I get these kind of beautiful, unexpected grayish colors that lean a certain direction on the color wheel. And then I'm able to use those in these little landscapes. You know, it's a good day of painting when you ignore your coffee the whole time. Around where I live in Oregon, there's quite a few marshy areas. And I'm not sure if it's something from my just loving to play and search for frogs, turtles, and salamanders, but I still really am attracted to marsh scenes. So I'm doing a big series on them. Now you can see kind of the unveiling. It looks like some of the white gesso snuck underneath the tape, so I'll have to go back and clean that up, but you get a pretty general idea. Maybe I will post the pictures again.
All right, let's get back to, there we go. You guys seeing the Facebook page again?
Yes.
Yes.
Right. So how would you guys like to watch that in not 5 minutes, in a couple hours instead?
Yeah. I'm impressed you're going to use 3 different colors. I can't wait.
Me too. It will be very interesting. So let's, aim for the stars, try to hit the moon kind of a thing. We'll hope for the best. But I think that for some of you, the whole splitting it up, showing it in the values and then building up the colors was a tiny bit confusing, but I want to show you that I still start with the same idea. Big shapes to small shapes, kind of dark to light, and kind of wiping away and building it back up. You guys saw that kind of strange square looking eraser kind of a tool, which is a printing tool, which is a big piece of rubber basically, that painters have started using in the last couple of years. I've heard rumors that Scott Galatly from Gamblin' Paints actually kind of came up with that idea a little bit, but I don't know if that's true at all. But let's very quickly go through some of the paintings that you guys sent. And anyways, really quickly, because I'm changing paths so completely, is everybody okay with that? I can only see about 4 or 5 of them on the screen, but everybody kind of interested in seeing that? And what I'm going to do is the video that we're going to see is unfortunately not really going to show the palette as well as I would like, just because I can't quite zoom in and change it. So what I've done is I've set up my iPhone and I will record it on there as well and share that video with you. So you'll get 2 different views. Unfortunately, not during the live class. That'll be when you go back and review it. You'll be able to see a wider angle where you can see the color mixing and everything else. So it'll be kind of a 2-for-1 video. I tried to do it where you could see the palette and the paintings just became so very small. So I'm hoping that that works. So, you know, I'm going to try
Michael,
5 new things all at one time. Yeah.
Michael, Michelle joined later, and so she's getting like my picture right now when I'm speaking. Could you spotlight again so that she doesn't have to do that?
Or let's try that.
No, it didn't now. It's just that sometimes later when we play back the recording, people will pop in.
Oh, right. I think I figured out a new, so is it changing back and forth now or only in the videos from previously?
In the videos.
Okay, so hopefully I have figured that out. Yeah, that has always been an issue. The whole focusing in and, you know, going out of focus has been an issue. So there's been a lot of things I've been trying to work through. So hopefully I figured that out. We will see. Literally, that's what I was on the airplane reading about yesterday, was a couple different settings that I can change. And some people are able to use 3 different cameras. I've not figured that out at all, but they also seem to have special attachments and seem a lot more high tech than I am. All I can do is try to keep this little bush over here behind me alive. So all of this is just bonus.
Michael, could I ask a quick question? What do you call that big piece of rubber that you were using to rub out if one were to go to the art store?
Yeah, let's see if it has a name on it real quick. It's called a catalyst, C-A-T-A-L-Y-S-T. With all the different video cameras set up, I kind of locked myself in. Yeah, so catalyst, and the ones I prefer are both fairly similar. And they're such a simple tool. They're literally for doing printmaking, for squeezing the ink through the screen, but they're very flexible.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I like this one because of the sharp edge. And then this was the first one I bought, which has a, you know, a rounded edge. So I kind of prefer this one.
Mm-hmm.
I can go sharp or I can go rounded. And there are times actually when I'll even use the big wide corners and stuff. You can see there's paint on every side of it.
Thank you.
My daughter, when she does her abstract paintings, will literally just put like a dab of paint and then move. For her, it's acrylics. We'll move the paint with this tool on her canvas. She prefers, especially when she's doing great big abstracts and whatnot, she will actually lay the, let's say it's a 3 foot by 4 foot, 36 inch by 48 inch. She'll lay the panel on the ground in the studio here, which you would say is very obvious if you saw the floor in here. And used to be slippery in here. Now it's not. There's so much texture of built up paint. But yeah, she'll just do that, and she'll even flick it, which is why there's paint everywhere. She also likes rollers and all sorts of squeegees, all sorts of tools. If we were doing more geometric shapes, buildings and power lines and different things like that, squeegees are a great tool. We just, with this being a 4-week class, we just don't really have time to go over this. This is a very condensed class. So for those of you, Lori and Karen, and a couple other, Shirley, I think, for those of you that are new to being in my classes, this is a very condensed, quick class. Normally I wouldn't teach, you know, design and color within the same class as much. Of course, I'll, you know, cover everything, but I won't focus on everything like this. And also there's 6 weeks versus 4 weeks. So this is a little bit change of a format. So if you like it, but feel like, man, he's going so quickly and I'm not able to absorb everything, I hope that you'll come back in the fall and join us, where we'll slow it down and we'll go through things in more detail. This is kind of just a bonus 4-week class. I've never actually taught a class during the summer, but we just thought we'd just keep it going since we were kind of on a roll as a group and everything else. And I'm hoping that you guys are enjoying it. And, you know, Karen, Lori, Shirley, anybody else that's new to the class, if you do have questions, I mean, the simple questions, even like, how do I set up my palette and whatnot, feel free to ask on Facebook and I'll see if I can't get to those and answer them, or shoot an extra little short video or whatever else. Or please come back and join us in the fall when the group size is a little bigger and we slow it down and take a little more time.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. They're fun tools. I went from literally advising all my students, especially the beginners, only use flat brushes, sizes, 4, 6, 8, up to a 12, and only using a couple colors. And as I've changed as a painter, I just try to be as honest as possible and just say, here's what I'm using, here's what I'm doing, here's what I'm experimenting with, here's what I'm playing with. But in the beginning, all you really need is a couple good flat brushes. They can do the most. Like, if you're only able to afford, like, let's say 3 or 4 brushes, just buy flats. You can do almost everything you can do with the other brushes. And what it does is it teaches you to use the pressure of your stroke and the angle of your brush stroke to make thousands of brush marks. All these extras are just bonus. We don't need like the Bob, what's his name? Bob Ross, where he's got his tree brush and his rock brush and his cloud brushes. We just don't need all that. But it is fun to have a lot of tools and experiment and just see all the different marks, and the same thing goes with the colors. Is I generally suggest, especially for beginners, 3 colors, 1 red, 1 yellow, 1 blue, and white, and then expand into a split primary, 2 yellows, 2 reds, 2 blues, and a white. And you can stay there forever. You can make a million colors. But that being said, in all honesty, as I keep playing and keep experimenting, my drawers are just full of, I think I almost have every color that exists under a certain, couple of different brands. And that's just because I can't help myself. Just like you guys, it's like a kid in the candy shop when you go into the art store. It's like, oh my God, that looks delicious. I've got to try that. And it is fun. Today I have gone back to my suggested split primary palette. The colors, well, I can show you when we get over there. Let's go ahead and look at the Facebook. You guys posted a couple really beautiful pictures. I'm not going to spend too much time because I do have 3 paintings to paint. But I do want to brag for you guys, on you guys, at the beautiful work that you're sharing over there. It's just a couple of them. So let's do that really quickly. Then we'll take a little break and then we'll watch me make a big mess of 3 different panels. All right, let's do screen share. Making sure we're recording. All right. Okay, so everybody should be seeing the Facebook page there. And we've got 16 people in there, including me, so that's great, perfect number. And again, I try to, in time, post the links and stuff if anybody can't find their email or is kind of panicking. I don't know how many of you joined through the Facebook group. There, I posted the video that you just watched if you'd like to re-watch it at all. And then we got Denise. And Denise is on here today. Let's go ahead and click on, well, you know what? I'm going to click on your pseudo reference. I know that they're not the same at all, but this painting is so funny that you posted this. Denise, did you know I owned this painting? I don't own this version of it, but he did a smaller study of it, and I actually bought that from him. Brent Cotton is a friend of my sister. That he lived across the street from her in Montana. So it still means like 3 or 4 miles away because it's Montana, but great guy, really nice gentleman. And she actually kept horses on his property and stuff. And their kids are the same age. So their kids are good friends. I really like Brent Cotton's work. It's funny because his name is Cotton, last name Cotton, and he paints a lot of cotton trees, but he also does a lot of paintings from Italy. So yeah, I actually bought his study of this, which was probably a 9 by 12 inch painting. So I thought that was really, what a coincidence that you happen to share this painting as your reference. So very cool. Try and get back. Let's go to Denise's painting. So here we go. We've got Denise's underpainting, which is so good. Really beautiful. And I have to think that you listened last week very well, because look at this lead in, and it takes you kind of to nowhere, but then all of a sudden your eye follows back very subtly. There's these hints of a line taking you back. Our focus area is kind of here with this nice edge quality and different things going on. Soft edges where she doesn't really care if your eye goes as much, and really kind of keeps you in this area. Just so you know, don't compare yourself to Denise on your paintings and everything. Denise has been painting forever and showing and selling, and she's a fantastic painter. And Denise, how long have you been painting with me? For boy, like 6 years, 7 years?
I don't remember, but I'd say it's somewhere in the range of 5-6 years.
Yeah. So anyways, great work, Denise. And Denise works really hard. She paints all the time. Yeah, but anyways, beautifully done. This is such a nice, already such a nice painting. It's got such a nice romantic softness to it. I'll be curious if you build it up, you can, or gosh, so pretty. You could theoretically somewhat be done. It's got such a nice, I keep using the word, but poeticness. And I like how, again, it leads you in, you kind of get into here, and then all of a sudden your eye goes, oh, there's something, let's follow that line. Takes you into kind of the focus area. And then all of a sudden you're kind of like, oh, this is interesting over here, and back down. And now we're kind of in this loop, aren't we?
I painted it from a local farm. Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I was thinking of taking it over to the farmer's wife and seeing if she liked it. This is the view of their farm.
Denise,
But
I'm curious, what paintbrushes were you using doing this?
I use that, what Michael calls the shop brush a lot.
Okay.
That little pastry brush that's 99 cents.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Oh,
I use that a lot, and I also use one that's all chopped up. I take a razor blade and chop up a lot of the bristles so it's uneven.
mm-hmm.
And yesterday I went out into my garden and got a few weeds and started scrubbing around with those, because I try to take away my control, because if I get into that, I start getting too tight and too detailed.
Hmm. Wow.
And I use a paper towel a lot, Q-tips, whatever.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can't hear you, Michael. You're muted. Michael,
You're muted.
Okay, there we go. Now you can hear me. For some reason, I dropped off for a second there and brought me back. But anyways, Brent Cotton is a big believer in having a man-made structure in his paintings as well. And you'll notice that not only the lead-in line, but the contrast of hard edge versus soft edges, inorganic lines versus organic lines, really is a great tool. And it can work inversely too. Like, let's say you're doing a cityscape and all of a sudden you throw a tree or some bushes or some figures into your focus area. It works the same. But yeah, Denise, this is a really nice, great design. I like that you have this kind of big quiet area over to the left. A lot of me would be like, you know what, is that important? Maybe we can crop it off and zoom in. But I actually really like having that quiet space. That's kind of like our respite as we go through. We get excited, and then we come back over here and our brain kind of takes a little breath, and then back in we go again. A lot of artists will do that. They'll have kind of quiet spots, active spots in their paintings. So there's all this different kind of contrast that we can have. We've got lights and darks. You could, when you come in with color, you can do warms and cools, hard edge, soft edge, sharp edge, organic edge, or, inorganic edge, organic edge, dark values, light values. You got so many contrasts, but yet it looks very mellow, very relaxed. So I like so many of your paintings, Denise, but I think this may be one of my favorite underpaintings you've done. I think you've really evolved into something very nice. And like I've always said, one of the big bonuses of being a teacher is I get to steal all your guys' good ideas. This is a really fun iteration of a lot of different concepts, and I appreciate you sharing it with us. Any other comments, you guys?
I love it as it is.
Right. It's always tough, right? You almost like, oh, let's just start another one. Let's do it again. And, you know,
I think I will. I think I'm going to start another one because I have ideas for that place from my photographic references. It's a large panorama, so this scene is actually twice as wide in reality. And I've got pictures of little cows and horses.
What size is this one? Denise, what size is this painting?
I'm going to take a guess and say it's about 30, maybe 28 inches. I'm not sure.
that's great. That's really big. I'm so proud of you. Denise, can I ask another question that I already know the answer of, but I would like you to share with the group? How long did it take you to get comfortable with just letting things go, with letting lost edges and being comfortable with uncomfortable brush strokes and abstraction and all of that?
Well, actually, back in the day when I was doing more artwork a long time ago, I learned that I'd be looking at a giant white blank canvas and wondering, how am I going to fill that space? And I just started trying to let myself go, which is to take any tool that was in my hand and just make marks. And then marks turn into symbols that you can't predict. I guess that's the only way I know how to describe it. Is learned a lot from you, though, watching you paint.
Anyways, very nice. It's fantastic, because I do know that a lot of us, as we're starting out, have a hard time getting away from leaf, 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 grass, 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 everything being so exact. And this is such a good example that none of us for a second question that this is a field full of grasses, and that this is a dirt road, and that there's leaves on these trees. You know what I mean? And none of that's told, besides, a couple little, looks like you maybe pulled away a little bit of paint in here and then used your brush over here. You know what I mean? None of it's told to us. None of us, it's not beat over the head. You just let us do the work, and our brain just instantly goes, this is grass-ish. So this is grass-ish, grass-ish. And on we go. And, we know these are trees. So we know there's leaves. We don't have to see every leaf. We don't have to see, we don't even see any leaves. We just know that they're there.
Well, maybe I should post my version of this that was yesterday morning. And I talked to Kathleen and asked her advice, because I said, I'm not sure about that big gold shape with the road going up there. And I really had hard edges, and she told me that the big shape of the golden field was shooting off the canvas to the left. Like you were saying, you got to have a way to stop your eye from leaving the canvas. So on the far left, I toned down the color so your eye would stay in the painting. So with Kathleen's critique, I made that adjustment.
Did you have those clouds above that already there, or did you add those to help dim it down?
You mean the kind of darker?
It looks like mist to me above the trees on the left.
That's just rubbing down with a paper towel.
Right, but did you have those there as part of the process of causing that to reflect on the grass below to keep the eye in?
The real scene has a little lilac blue forest effect, the mountain in the background, and that's what I was trying to do, is make layers of values, and that would be the most distant hill, therefore value. I didn't have anything planned for clouds. I don't even know what I'm going to do. I might just leave it.
Are you talking about, you think, I don't think these are clouds. I think this is a hill kind of trees.
Yeah, it's a purple hill.
Okay, yeah, that upper left one I thought was kind of a cloud, and I thought maybe you added that with the shadow down in the field below.
Mm.
I see what you mean. The real scene has layers of forest. So it's just, that's all it is.
Beautiful. Yeah, great job. And Kathleen, great advice on that. And that kind of goes back to that Brian Blood painting that we looked at last week, right? With the beach off to the right side on that one, the bright right. And I really appreciate you guys learning from, you know, other artists' paintings and seeing. And yeah, very, very right. I mean, gosh, anyway.
Thank you so much.
Very nicely done.
I hated it yesterday. I hated it until I started to mush it around and remove paint.
I prefer the mornings where I wake up and realize, oh, I actually painted well last night, versus waking up and going, oh no, the paintings that I loved yesterday are actually all horrible. So that's a better option, is waking up and realizing that your paintings are better than you thought. Because sometimes it can go either way, right? Where we just absolutely fall in love and we're not seeing them realistically. And we, at least for me, I'm such an optimist that I'm always like, oh my God, this is the best painting I've ever painted. And then I get away from it for a night and come back and I'm like, what was I thinking? Oh no, I've got so much work. It's in a bad place. But you went the other way. You were thinking it wasn't as good, came back and realized that it's actually a really great, it's in a great place wherever you go with it. All right.
Thank you.
Go here. A lot of interesting texture. You can see all that canvas through. So that's one of the reasons, right before I get started on the painting critique at all, is you can see all that texture with the canvas. That's one of the reasons that I've gone to painting on panels more often. Some people really like that texture, and I'm not going to try to bash on it at all. Again, you know, looking at all the Impressionist paintings in Chicago and all the different stuff and how many artists use the canvas and the texture to different effects, fantastic. But for me, it gets this kind of pixelized look. So that's why I started painting. Either when I'm painting on canvases, I'll gesso them a couple more coats to try to get rid of some more of that texture. Or, you know, now I paint on panels a lot of the time. But it's not bad. And in fact, it can be a good tool because it grabs the paint. That texture of the canvas will literally pull the paint off your brush. I'm guessing that we're going to get thicker with this painting possibly, or you could get much thicker, you know, lean towards the Impressionists, and that will hide the canvas texture as well. If you're planning to paint quite thin, like Denise just did in that previous painting, and leave it, that canvas texture can get pretty annoying. You may either want to go toward linen, which is quite a bit more expensive, but it's a nice, really tight, irregular weave. So it doesn't have that kind of computer pixelization look. Or painting on panels, or just adding more gesso. Again, I'll add a couple more coats of gesso so that I don't see the canvas. And then when I sand it down, it becomes quite smooth. And that was just years of painting and years of comments from people, and even having one of my galleries that kind of just stopped accepting my real, where they could see the canvas texture a lot in my paintings. They're just kind of like, we don't want these anymore. We want your other work. And that's, you know, all your gallery owners and, you know, places you show are always going to have their opinions, and you can listen or ignore them. But I did tend to agree with them. So anyways, very nice painting though. Beautiful colors. I love the warm and cool and light and dark contrast. And the sense of mist and fog, both on the water and rising up through the trees. You got kind of a cloud sitting in front of this bank of trees on the left side. Really a good start here. Are you on with us today?
Yeah, I am. And this is just a color study that I just did it on like a little, like a pad of canvas paper. So it's literally, I just was feeling really unsure about how to do the fog. So I did a couple color studies just to see, should I try and paint the hill and then cover it with fog? Should I try to just do part of the hill and then paint the fog separately. So this is not the painting. It's just kind of a taken from the painting. I was just trying to figure out the colors, and so I'm open to suggestions because it kind of feels like the shape is almost too weird with the blue. I don't know.
Boy, I don't know. It doesn't bother me. That's not something
Okay.
I noticed. I actually kind of like that. But I mean, again, it's, you know, the view from our cabin. So I see this, you know, so often in the mornings where the clouds kind of sit, you know, let's say 50 feet, 100 feet above the water, and the light kind of shines underneath as the sun's rising. And then the clouds, you know, as they warm up, will begin to lift up off the water. And inversely, the fog begins to come up off the water as the water warms. And
Okay.
there's so many different effects. And that's, yeah, I appreciate your thought on that very much. But I really like it. I mean, when I squint my eyes and the texture kind of goes away, and again, that's just a personal thing right now. That's just something I've been dealing with the last couple of years. You know, we always notice in other people's work the thing that we're dealing with. But yeah, squint your eyes at the screen if you know, or take your glasses off or whatever. And gosh, it's really beautiful. I mean, it's got
good.
transitions. I love the slightly redder towards the bottom, goes up towards the yellowy, and then the yellowy gets a little whiter, leads into the blue. And what happens is it doesn't become green, right? And that's really tough. Like I will be dealing with that today with doing Alla Prima all at once. Let's say I wanted to go from a yellow part of the sky to a blue part of the sky. What's going to happen, obviously, is if they touch, which they would, it will turn to green, right? Yellow plus blue makes green. But you let the yellow dry, I'm assuming.
No, I just worked on it.
So you must have just applied it very lightly, because if you would have touched this twice, this blue paint, you can put blue paint on top of yellow paint and let it appear blue, but it's all about the pressure, loading up your brush and letting the paint do its thing. Because if you touch this blue down and then touch it again, all of a sudden it's going to begin to blend with that yellow and go to green. So a lot of you are going to notice that. So that is, for a lot of beginning painters, why I kind of say, you know what, let it sit, let it dry for a little bit. If you don't want to end up with colors, you know, that are mixing on the painting.
Yeah.
That's one of the trickiest parts about doing Alla Prima. A lot of times when I do Alla Prima or painting all at one time, that's basically all it means, painting, you know, finishing the painting in one sitting, Alla Prima. I'm sure it means more in French, but, you know, in my understanding of it, or my usage of the term, just means painting all at once. And what it does is it teaches me to vary my pressure, vary my loads of paint as I put them down, and being aware that I'm painting or am I blending, right? Painting meaning just applying the paint and leaving it alone. Blending meaning putting the paint down and then touching it again and touching it again and touching it again, so that it begins to pick up the colors that are underneath it. Does that make sense, guys? You've all had that issue where you're just like, why is this turning brown? Why is it turning green? I want it to be blue on top of yellow. But that is about pressure and so many of us will use the excuse of, well, I guess I have to be done. I want to keep painting, Michael Orwick. I want to keep painting, but I can't because the colors are blending and turning to mud and turning, you know, to mush, and I'm getting weeds where I want flowers. And it's about the pressure. It's about loading that brush up. That's why we paint thin to thick, right? We can put thick paint on top of thin paint all day long.
See here? Oh.
All right, so let's go ahead and go to your next one. Is this looks like the same painting. Is it different? Just a different angle a little bit.
Yeah, I just couldn't get the colors to come out right. So I put in two because it's kind of in between the two.
Okay, great. Well, I like them both. This one, I like the strength of it a little more maybe, but you know, I do like my grays and cools. And yeah, photographing paintings is so difficult. I literally will take like 5 photos in different spots in my studio, then go outside. You know, back in the old days when we had cloudy weather and fog in Oregon, overcast day is the best day to photograph your work outdoors. And then just watching for the glare. And the cool thing now with cameras and how we can straighten them out, like if you shoot at an angle, sometimes that's an easier way to get the glare off. is shooting like a little bit sideways to the painting and then straightening them out using whatever software. And you can get rid of glare. But yeah, glare is such a pain in the butt. And that's why I literally sometimes have to pay, you know, a professional photographer $50 to take one photo of my painting because of the glare. The glare is such an issue. All right, Carrie, are you here too?
I am.
Great. And what a difference between those two, but they're so beautiful, both of them. This is like almost a semi-posterized version of it. And I love that. I love seeing the hard edges versus, you know, the really soft edges that you had. And you do have soft edges in here for sure. So, but this is much more dramatic and kind of, yeah, it's so neat to see how I could give all of us, all, you know, 15 or 16 of us in this group, I could literally say, well, let's all paint the same painting, you know, based on the same reference, and we would have such different interpretations. And that's my favorite part of art. That's just why it's, you know, that's what art is to me, is that it's going through the filter of us, right? So that's why I hope nobody's like, well, it doesn't look like Mike's painting. I don't care if it looks like my painting. I don't care if, you know, your copy Denise's, you know, you end up looking like Denise or Kathleen or anybody else. I want it to look like your painting, and just realize you can spend your whole life trying not to paint like you're meant to paint. And it is so much agony that, you know, when you just kind of go, you know what, this is how my body is meant to paint. This is how my brain wants to paint. This is how, you know, I apply the paint and load up my brushes and all these things. And it can evolve over time. But if you're fighting it, it's rough, you know. And I am always saying, I want more paint. You know, I have goals in my painting, but I accept kind of this inevitable Mike Orwickness to my paintings. And eventually people will kind of be drawn towards it. Maybe not as many as you want, but, you know, we'll attract our crowd. It's like doing your signature, right? You know, you just sit down and sign your checks as you're, you know, and it just flows out of you, right? We've done it so many times, and it's just, you know, and that if you look back at your signature over years, it slightly changes. You know, maybe your dots on your eyes get higher up or whatever, your swishes get bigger, but accept that and build on that and work through that. And, but anyways, very nice, Carrie. I love this. Very beautiful. It's such an interesting, so happy, so joyous, and such a little party back here in the focal area as we zoom back through. And you can picture yourself being on this canoe, kind of like, I want to get back into there. I want to get back to the sunlight, you know. But yet these blues and grays are really beautiful. So I really like this. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, I used your reference painting. What I really liked was the very dark corner. I know that when you talked about this image earlier, you were saying most landscapes are horizontal, but I wanted to do it vertical so that I could do that really deep, dark corner and then lead into the pinkish sky. I'm wondering about taking the purple cloud out and doing something more like Lisa did and doing a graded like pink to yellow.
I don't know. I'd almost leave the purple and then maybe bring some of that along the top of it so that as it gets towards the yellow, it has a bit of a transition. Or even on the underside of the gray that's above the yellow, you could bring some of that in possibly.
I was worried about it looking too stripy.
100%. Yeah, and if you keep it hard edged, it definitely will. That's probably where you're going to want to do, kind of like you have this light pink to a kind of a darker pink, then up to the purple. It's very subtle and our eye just skims across it. I would probably want to do something like that in those transitions that you're talking about. Yeah, if you're getting very stripy paintings, and you'll even see today, probably when I'm doing Alla Prima here, that I'll have some very stripy areas. And then I will go back in and just soften those edges out, kind of like probably you did up here in these clouds where, you know, you don't even know where the cloud back and the fog on the trees starts and ends, right? And so it's just being aware of that. And once you go, you know what, that's too stripy, what can I do? I can either create transition colors more, you know, a little closer together, or I can soften the edges by feathering it out with a clean brush over the wet paint. You have lots of options there.
Great, thank you.
Great job with the dark. I think that that adds so much perspective because it's very easy for this to be a very flat and posterized image. But by having this dark color in the water, it definitely helps the water to lie down flat. Again, like we're sitting almost in a canoe. You know, the canoe's not even moving. We're not even disturbing the water. We've sat there so long observing this beautiful scenery that the water's chilled out. This is actually a photo from our dock, which I have to be really steady on because it's a floating dock. So I have to like literally walk out there as slowly and softly as I can and then stand still for a long time. Otherwise I get all these ripples radiating out from where I'm standing on the dock. So anyways, I like that dark foreground. And then the really light far back trees that are picking up a little bit of light, but have still, you can tell there's a cool atmosphere, a cool fog in between us and that. And it really has a nice sense of depth. If you want to, you could bring a little bit of that fog, not as light as here, but a little bit of it, and to create a distinction between these trees here and these trees if you want. Just a little bit of fog along here on this bunch will differentiate it from here so that this is not such a solid dark mass. That's completely up to you though. Anybody else have any feedback on this painting here by Carrie?
Very beautiful.
Very beautiful. All right, Michelle, are you here?
Yes.
All right, so Michelle is using a reference that we built as a class in one of the other sessions. I don't even remember which one, if it was a design or I don't even remember what the class was over, but we, this was based on a photo I took at wetlands near my house. We added the water into it. We actually took this water from another photograph that a student had of Africa. And we took the elephants out and we put the water into this scene, added just, I think this line of water wasn't in this photo either. I can't remember for sure. Maybe that water is actually back there. But we were just kind of looking and experimenting with superimposing photos over them. So anyways, Michelle, I'm glad you used that one and you changed it yet again, added some hills and different things, made the trees smaller and made the sky bigger. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's just, it was my, the green was actually ultramarine blue, which was kind of fun. I was hoping it would turn more greenish on the yellow, and it did. I just did that all last night as my preliminary blocking.
Cool. The ground is nice. You've got a good design. And when you get back in and add your darks and your lights, I think that's going to be great. I'm not going to comment too much on that. But what I would do want to comment in on is this area right here where the sun and the clouds are next to each other. It's ridiculous. That is amazing. I mean, that looks like a photo. And I'm guessing what you did was kind of have the yellow underneath, put some of the purples over the top, leaning towards the reds a little bit. And then when you pulled back away, you got some of this. Tell me how you did that. That's really neat.
I started with the, you know, the Indian yellow underpainting, and then I started with the darker purples around the edges, and then a little blues, and then I started just throwing in those sort of pinky colors, and then ended up wiping it away. And well, I soft brushed it with the shop brush and then started wiping it away with the Q-tip. I really like how those little thin lines in closer to the sun, that was just done with wiping away with Q-tips. Yeah.
It's, I mean, let's see if it'll let us zoom in here. That is a photo. I mean, that is so, and in a good way. I don't mean that in a bad way. I kind of sometimes get upset when people are like, it looks like a photo to all my paintings. But that is so neat. The interesting thing would be like when I do something kind of so nice in an underpainting stage is like, do I protect it or do I just You know, thank goodness that I got to see it and painted it and still go over it. So that can become dangerous for you, you know, as you're going back in and adding more paint and stuff. But anyways, what a neat effect you did. And what I heard when you were describing your process that I really appreciated was that it wasn't one way. You didn't go, you know, one color, then the next color, and then the next color and stop. You went kind of one color, then this color, and then back to this color. And you know what I mean? You just kind of kept pushing and pulling. It's not like once I go to yellow, I can't come back to the yellow, or once I go to the red and then to the purple, I can't go back to the reds. All of this, you know, when I say light to dark, thin to thick, big to small, it doesn't mean that that's, you know, once I've done it, it's done. You're going constantly, you're going back and forth. Those are just kind of generalized terms. But I do have to tell you, Michelle, that out of all the reference or beginnings I've seen from this, including the couple times I've done this, it's fantastic. It's really nice.
Thank you. You made my day.
Oh, thank you. You made our morning.
Michelle, excuse me, Michelle.
Yes,
Is that on canvas?
it is. It's a 16 by 20, I think.
Isn't that interesting? You can barely see it at all.
It's beautiful.
I did multiple gesso layers like you taught us, and then I did try to apply the paint pretty thickly as I went. I mean, well, thin to, you know, so yeah, I don't know. I think maybe just the gesso helped.
For sure, 100%. And again, that is so personal. I have friends of mine, like the gentleman Anton Pavlenko, who I'm sure you've heard me talk about. He will paint with some real heavy textured canvases sometimes, and it really does interesting things. If you go look at John Singer Sargent or Joaquin Sorolla, you know, two of the best painters of our last 100 years, they will paint with some pretty texturized canvases. And there's parts in the painting where they really use it, you know, with the thin layers, and then other parts where the paint is so thick and built up. And it's really interesting to see. You know, being in Chicago, I got to see a whole lot of Impressionist paintings. And it was interesting to look at, you know, and in fact, I took so many close-ups of just kind of the forgotten corners of the Impressionist paintings, because that's where I think you can really learn about how they're building up their paint. And it's just so abstract and gorgeous. But it was really interesting to see that some of them were, you know, painting on what looked like basically potato sacks, you know, the linen potato sacks, and just heavy texture. The old Russian Impressionists definitely use that really thick weave linen. But so it's a matter of taste again. So, you know, when I say my preference, please just know that that is purely my preference, and it's my preferences change all the time as I paint. Anyways, I think that got us caught up. Oh, here's one more. Shirley, I saw you here. How you doing, Shirley?
Fine.
Okay, so I'm guessing this is the reference photo.
Yep.
That's pretty neat. Way to get down to the kind of the just values of that. That's a really good idea. It looks nice and purple. It's kind of fun. What an interesting design. This will be kind of mimicking some of the stuff I will be doing today using this winding creek. I think I'm going to use the creek format for all of mine. So just know, again, that's just kind of a preference I personally have. And let's go over to your underpainting. And it's funny, you use a purple underpaint or purple reference kind of, maybe it's just the lighting on it in your studio. And then you went to the yellows and browns. Very nice. You can really see just using two colors and a little bit of values, you can really feel the essence of the design as it's going back. And I really like how this creek turns, S-turn here. And then what does it do? Get this nice little, almost a canopy shape, but it also, that shape guides us back and takes us into here. So I might be interested in doing something with the sky that kind of does not the exact inverse of this shape, but a little bit of something so that our eye goes and then brings us back and then down and up we go again. See what I mean there? So if you can do something in here, it could be a very mild gradient, it could be a cloud, whatever it is might be nice, because otherwise I fear that we might just kind of shoot off because this is so upright. So maybe something in here might be really useful, but yeah, what a nice fluid feeling design. Yeah, very curious. So tell us a little bit about this, if you don't mind.
Oh, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, good. Yeah, well, I was just going off with it and I was thinking, gosh, I'm painting like it's almost going to be finished. I didn't put in the big blocks of dark and light. I was trying to make more of a value study out of it.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, how do I put color in it? What do I do with it? And also right in the middle of that tree that's above the little tiny tree down on the right side, I kind of extended out after I took this picture, the branch there, so that it wouldn't be so straight up and down, kind of the profile.
Great. So to your first question, kind of about how do I build up the color, if it helps, once this is dry, think of it as if, because a lot of us when we're beginning, we will draw on our canvas with pencil, right? You know, draw our design out with pencil. Just think of this as if you did it with your pencil, right?
Yeah.
You cover it, you can cover it 100%. And so much of the time, you know, like Denise's underpainting was so beautiful that it gets her into danger because it's, you know, and Michelle's as well with that sky, that can really get you in trouble. And I found that sometimes it's like better if I do a less finished underpainting because I'm not in love with it and I'm not afraid to paint over the top of it. Because yeah, there's been so many times where I'm like, oh my gosh, it's great already. I really like it. I'm just going to start another one, which is fine and fantastic. But if you just treat this like it's a drawing, because when it dries, you're going to have this nice texture, nice surface to paint over, to build your paints up on. You can paint thickly, you can paint thinly, you can do whatever you want with that. So we just treat this as if we've got our design in there, our drawing, and our big shapes, and we've got our values, lights and darks kind of established. So you can just paint over it, literally just look at it, just go, okay, the sky is, you know, this light blue down here, this darker red or blue up here, whatever colors you choose. The grasses are these olive, you know, greens. These, no, I'm going to do the kind of these yellowy ochres and then the olive greens and the trees. Pre-mix those colors, you know, make your lights and darks and kind of go to town with that. So
Okay.
yeah, or you can go in very transparently and build it up as, you know, thin transparent layers, either way. And a lot of times mine are a combination of the two. And you'll see a little bit of that today. What's going to happen as I build up more in an Alla Prima, or maybe I should just say all at once, you know, kind of start to end, is that my drawing is wet. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to smush it and smudge it. And you know what I mean? I can't just put the paint directly on top of it. I mean, I'm going to, but the drawing is going to get destroyed.
Okay. So one other question I had is I did this in acrylic. Do you think it would be okay to put oil paint on top?
Yes, 100%. That is, in the last couple of classes, I started doing that more and more often. I love having like an acrylic day where I'll start 3 or 4 paintings and then letting those sit for approximately 3 days seems to be the magic that I keep reading. And it's not so that it dries, but it's so that it cures, which is a strange thing. And then I will have my oil day where I go through and I'll do my transparent layers and kind of create, and I think I showed you guys some of those last week. And I can show you again when we get up to the easel. And then after that dries for a day or two, because that dries pretty quick, and I don't mind because it's oils on top of oils and I'm going from thin to thick, then I can go ahead and just start getting expressive brush strokes and thicker paint and, you know, the stuff that people are so attracted to. People really, so many of my galleries really do like it when I have some thick areas of paint on there. I don't know if people are just like, well, good, he spent some money on that paint, it's worth it, worth the price. I don't know. I think we all just love impressionism so much. so funny. Every gallery I've ever been to that has, you know, a major gallery that has an impressionist section is by far and away the most popular section of the museum.
But you
And
can see the hand of the artist in it, you know that, oh yeah, that's a painting. It's not a photograph or anything. It's not a print.
yeah, I agree with you. I think that is a huge part of it. Yeah, and it's fun to see, you know, both really soft blended edges and more painterly thick approach. So anyways, I think
Michael, can I ask a question? Because I'm still trying to understand tangents. In this picture, the top of the tree is going off the picture.
Yeah.
Would that be considered a tangent?
No.
I was worried about that, and I was thinking, oh, I better tone that down, kind of cover it up and not make it so bold.
No, you did the right thing here, Shirley. A tangent would be solely if the tree, literally the point of the tree, top of the tree ended right at the edge, or on the right side, let's say it ended right there and just fit within that space.
Oh, okay.
It's better to either have it quite a bit shorter than the edge or taking it off the edge.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, you just don't want it bumping against it. You don't want it to feel like when you frame it that it's holding the frame up. You know, when you see little kids paintings and everything fits in the paint, in the surface, you know, the house is right up against the edge. The sun fits perfectly in the corner. The ground, the bottom is the ground. Literally, they'll just have grass along the bottom of the paint. Those can be tangents. Other things that can be tangents is if you had a cloud and it bumped and stopped right against the tree.
Okay.
Or like if this tree was a little further to the right and stopped right against this tree. That's where I get into tangents, is where my trees kind of bump up against each other, especially like this tree seems the closest, this one seems in the middle ground, and this one seems the furthest away just by their size and where their bases are. Right? So if this tree stopped right here, right, literally bumped up against it, and then this tree bumped right up against that, even though they're on, you know, they're 50 yards apart as far as distance, but it looked like they bumped up against each other and stopped each other from growing. Those are kind of like tangents. So lots of different things. So yeah, great question. Thank you.
I have one more question. When you talk about building up the thin layers and then painting thickly, the thin layer, is that where you use the Galkid gel and the paint thinner, the Gamsol? For the thin layer?
Yes, but I don't use very much medium at all. Generally in my underpaintings, when I'm glazing onto an underpainting, because the glaze makes kind of a slick, slippery surface. So I kind of will try to use more and more medium as I'm building up my layers. And I definitely fluctuate to where I use no medium. You don't need much medium in your paints anymore. If you want to make the paints more transparent, you can put them on thinner. You can use transparent paint, or you can use mediums with them. And that basically just dilutes the particulates of color in the paint and just pushes them farther apart. That's all you're doing. Yeah, you do not want to use too much medium in the beginning. You'll just make a very slick surface, and the paint does not want to attach to it as well. The paintings that I'm going to do today, I kind of would like them to be pretty dry by this weekend. So I may put a little bit of Galkid gel into them, just because that does speed up the drying time. But at the same time, it makes for a more unpredictable paint. So I may not use any medium. And today, I was actually thinking about that this morning as I was laying out my paints. I just don't know.
Thank you.
If I do use a little medium, it will probably be in the kind of thicker paint layers so that that paint dries a little bit faster. Or what I'll do is squeeze out a little pile of it and just kind of tap the corner of my brush into that medium and mix that with my paint. So it's very little, but it will speed up the drying time. Okay, and different mediums have different drying times. So just being aware of that. The Galkids do speed up drying. If you're using the solvent-free gels, they don't seem to change the drying time very much. There's like different ones called like Japan dryer and a couple of different ones that really speed up the drying time. They speed it up so much that I get nervous with them. I just feel like somehow they're gonna crack. I feel like it's putting, I don't want the top layer to dry so much faster than the bottom layer that it's locking in the moisture of the bottom layer. If you lock in the moisture, what happens as paints dry, they expand a little bit. And that's, I believe, one of the reasons we get cracking in some of our paintings is when the top layer dries faster than the layer underneath it. So if I'm not using any medium or very, very, very little medium, and I'm painting from thin to thick, meaning that I've got thinner bottom layers building up to thicker layers, then my paint should be able to dry progressively down towards the bottom. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, I hear different theories on that. Oh, we got one more. We got a couple.
Michael, I want to tell you too, I have submitted 2 paintings and I don't know where they are, probably in the Ethernet someplace. I continue to do that, and I guess I'm doing it incorrectly because they never seem to appear.
Interesting, interesting. And who was that? Sorry, it didn't appear on my screen. Who was
Gail Joseph.
Okay, Gail. I don't exactly know. So are you posting them right into the comments on this page?
Pardon?
So if you just kind of go to comment, not like underneath somebody's thing, but let's pretend, let's go to the top and I'll come back to yours, Karen. So here where it says write something.
Yeah.
Photo, video, and add a photo there.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing.
What is going on?
So I don't know where they've gone, but in any event.
Maybe they're editing all the swear words you're putting in there. I don't know. It's like, not fit.
Gail, at the end, are you pushing post?
Yeah.
Can you try it now while we're on here, possibly? Or
Is it under media?
no, just go to under the discussion. If you go to media, you can put it there. But
I'm sorry, I shouldn't have interrupted right now. You go ahead with this one and I'll figure it out this week.
no, that's great. Karen, you are one of the reasons I wanted to do kind of the Alla Prima because of your comments about building it up and not exactly kind of understanding or it being a little bit confusing because this is beautiful. Really nice transitions, and there's so much to be said for doing it more kind of direct. And I believe that's what you did here, right? You kind of went all kind of almost all at one painting, all at one time.
Yeah, that was direct.
That direct, yeah.
And I was so angry at my other result.
Yeah.
I completely.
So here's the good news: is yeah, this. You know, if I'm going to be honest, it's not nearly as nice as the other one. Can you say that one more time?
I could not get the photograph to show the true colors.
Okay, so the good.
I took like 5 shots.
Okay, so the good news is once this is dry, you can paint straight over the top of it. Go ahead and mix your colors, make good, nice piles, and just use this as your design, just as if this was your very first underpainting. Because there's so many paintings I have like that where I'm just like, oh no, the colors just didn't work out or whatnot, and I just go for it again. I'm going to give you a couple quick feedback just as you're building this painting up. Your tree trunks here, the spacing is very repetitive. It's the same space. As if like a very, very diligent English gardener came in and placed these all in a row. They don't look like one's closer or further away. So that would be my big comment on that. And then your sky is beautiful right up here. This is a really nice, beautiful pinks versus grays. Really great.
The color is wrong on the photograph.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and that definitely happens. So anyways, have fun. Come back to this once it's dry and you're a little more comfortable. I won't talk much about this, but I appreciate, and is it acrylic?
No, it's water miscible oils.
Okay, water miscible oils. Fantastic. Because yeah, this is so much nicer. Yeah, it just feels better. Your transitions are beautiful. And so that technique of doing the underpainting and then building it up is not for everybody. And in fact, it's not the way I paint so much of the time. The reason I do it is as a teaching technique to show you this is how my mind is thinking. My mind is thinking big shapes to little shapes, dark shapes to lighter shapes. It's thinking, you know, thin to thick. It's thinking design first. Design is by far and away the most important thing. Then my lights and my darks, my value structure, and then my color. But once you get that and you've done that a couple of times, or in your case, maybe you're just forcing yourself to kind of think through that either right before you get started or as you get started, like looking at your reference, go, okay, these are my big shapes. This is the design that I like about it. This is my focus area. If you have one, these are the colors I'm chasing. This, you can do all of that. So if you were doing, like, let's say all plein air, going out on location and painting, you don't have time to do a underpainting and let it dry. You know what I mean? You're doing it all at one time. But I'm still thinking the same thoughts. So that's one of the hardest things I've ever had about teaching, is how do I break down what's going on in my mind? And a lot of times it's all at once, right? But it's, well, not all at once, but it's in quick succession. It happens very quickly. And then there's other times, with my big paintings, my big, almost mural sized paintings and stuff, where I like to break it down and really figure it out. And a lot of times I'm not painting in my values, but I'll on the side be drawing, sketches where they're value studies, and my designs all figured out on the, on the side of my painting. The references I'm going to use, I probably won't share much because they're not going to be that useful for you guys, but they're just little black and whites of multiple photos that I collage together. Like, here's some trees, here's a creek, and I just kind of put them on top of each other. So I kind of went ahead and figured out my design, my values. I'll hold them up really quickly for the camera, but I'm not going to let you guys really see them because they're not that relevant. I'm going to be changing them so much as I paint, because the way I'm going to paint today is kind of my favorite way. It's the reward system that I use after a long, fun day of painting. I think I've told you guys that when I have a great day of painting, I reward myself by painting. And just letting it go and just having fun and just playing and just pushing paint, because there's performative art. That's the performative art is where it's the things I've practiced. It's where I need precision. It's where I'm doing a commission and it needs to look just like so-and-so mountains or just like so-and-so creek, or, it's got a hotel that needs to look just like that hotel. So it's performative to me because I know how to do that. I've practiced doing that. But for me, the fun in painting is the exploring, the pushing, the pulling, the trying new things. So today's technique that I'm going to show you is going to be much more in line with this painting that you did, Karen. You can tell you had fun. I did. Nobody would doubt it.
That one?
I can tell you did not have fun.
No, that was awful.
I used to have a sign on my wall that have fun when you paint. It was a big sign that in a critique I was in, a lady basically just said the same thing that I'm telling to me, that you can tell when you're having fun, and your paintings are better when you're having fun. People can feel it. Your audience can feel it. Maybe that's why we like impressionist paintings. It looks like they're having fun. I don't know, and there's other people that of course like the photorealism and, great, fantastic. I'm just not going to paint that for you, that people. So anyways, I'm going to ignore these a little bit for now. I'm going to invite you to go back in and have fun and paint over the top of it and just treat that as your drawing. But what a difference. I'm so glad you didn't just throw your paints away in disgust and say, I thought painting was going to be fun. Mike lied to me. Painting is not fun. But what you did was paint that, have some struggles, and put it away and start another one and do some really neat things.
Yeah,
I appreciate it. So there.
Michael, this is Linda Whittingham. I posted some black and white acrylic work that I was doing for working on design, and I'd appreciate it. It's right there. I don't need feedback today, but I'd appreciate, you taking a look and seeing if I made it better or worse by what I was doing.
Yeah, let's have a peek. Okay, I think that's going to be the last one I'll go over, and then we'll take a decent little break. And my soda waters, otherwise my throat's going to stop working. Okay, so, oh, and that's your lady. Cool.
Changed it by adding a path behind her to try to do the lead the eye thing, and I'm not sure it really worked.
Yeah, it's tough, right? When it's kind of in the middle of the painting. It's probably not as relevant here because you've got a path with this edge of the reflection leading us in, and it is kind of fun that you made an S curve out of it. Do you see that? I don't even know if you did that instinctually or purposefully.
I did it purposely, but I don't know if it worked.
It worked. I wouldn't make it look like a boat ramp coming down to the water. It's a little too obvious. I would maybe just hint at it that this lady in a nice dress with a parasol was able to walk down here without getting her dress too muddy. Just have a bit of a path. This is a legit paved road look right now. But as you go back in with color and stuff, you can change that. When I see the white dress and the parasol, I think of, again, Monet with the lady on the hilltop with the the red flowers and whatnot. So that might be fun to bring in some flowers and things into here if you want. Yeah, it's an interesting one. You've got a pretty good dissection of space with the tree half and the sky half, but it works pretty well because you got this just enough balance where you've got the delicate details and then the big, burly, heavy details. I'm wondering if this tree, these branches maybe could come out a little further. So it's not such a straight line. If you look at this branch edge, this branch edge, this branch edge, and this branch edge, and this branch edge, all are in a straight line up. So I think if you broke that up a little bit, that would make a little more interesting shape, and you would watch this S.
Good idea.
Don't know if you can hear my cool S sound effects, but that's it.
I was worried her head and hat were at the sort of tangent line of the background, but I didn't know how to do anything else because she won't show up.
So there's an interesting thing about that. When you are looking at a figure and their eye level is on the horizon line, that means they're the same height as us. So that's fine, actually. You're, you're just probably going to want to do something a little bit, probably not make it right at her neck, maybe bring it up, and it looks like you have midway through the face. That's a big hat. So no, that's fine. Like if you look at photos that you take of people on the beach, if you're the same height as them, you'll know it because oftentimes, if you're shooting straight out at them, that their eye level will be right at the horizon level a lot of the times. And then you'll know, oh, that person's taller than me because their head is above the horizon line. And those are kids because their eyes are, their heads are below the horizon line. So that's a cool little trick you can use when thinking about, am I looking down? Am I looking up? Am I looking straight across at figures? Are they taller? Are they shorter? Yeah, there's a little, let me do a quick thing here, desktop. Figure, so I'm pulling up my Photoshop and new screen share back to my Photoshop. Oh, let's see if I can open that real quick. What did I just save that photo as?
Figure. Figure.
Yeah, looking really quickly. It doesn't look like it may be saved. Weird. Ah, there it is. Okay, bring that into Photoshop. Sorry. All right, you guys are still seeing the Facebook, correct? I'm not hearing anybody. Are you guys still seeing the Facebook page?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to do stop share, and I'm going to do share screen to Photoshop. All right, now are you seeing my Photoshop?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, here's something I like to do just to show about perspective. This is kind of a fun little experiment. Kids really enjoy this when I show perspective. So you've got your figure, and I'm going to copy and paste her exactly the same size she is. So now I've made 3 copies of her, or 2 copies. So we're going to have, so if I bring her down here and bring her up here, now let's just clean up the background real quick on them. Slightly bigger brush. Do you guys see how this one in the lower left corner is all of a sudden a little kid? And this one up here is a gigantic woman coming over the mountain to eat your village. But they're all the same size. I always think it's really funny. And then just how perspective works. Let's move her. Oh, I see what I did. So we'll leave her. And then so you got overlapping is a tool for perspective, right? So now she's tiny, right? It's a little kid dressed just like mom, or like her daughter, and then mom's back here because she's much taller. And it's weird how her eyes just optically do that, even though they're all 3 the same size.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. So, and then if I want to make it better, right, I just make her look bigger. And now it's very confusing because we got the big one in the front, so that makes sense. And then these 2 are the same size. So now she looks like a little one, and she looks gigantic, even though she's smaller size-wise than this one. If I move her up next door, look how much bigger she is. But down here, they look the same size almost.
Yeah.
All right. Complete deviation. All right, so now let's get back to Photoshop, screen share again, stop share. Okay, well, thank you guys so much for that. I do need to take a little break and get my soda waters going because my throat is getting scratchy. And we've already been here for an hour and a half. Is that possible? Oh my gosh. Wow, that was a long critique. That was fun. I'm going to do my best still on the 3 paintings, and my class may go a little bit long. We'll see how I hold up. If I just get quiet, that means I maybe just fell back asleep. So anyways, let's take a 10-minute break. It's 10:26, so 10:36. And that will give me some time to set up a little bit up there at the palette. And I will go ahead and if there is color when you get back, it's going to be, one's going to be Indian yellow, one's going to be quinacridone red, and I'm just going to scribble it on, wipe it on, and one's going to be the purple, which is going to be quinacridone red and manganese blue. It's my favorite purple. All right, so that'll be the 3 underpaintings, and I really don't know exactly where I'm taking them, what I'm going to do with them completely, but I kind of want to have some color, so it's not just a, like a black and white, but with a color. It's going to have a mixture of colors in each one. It's going to have thin paint, thick paint, and yeah, Now I'm nervous. Maybe that's why I took so long critiquing, is so I can just play the inaudible. All right, guys, let's have a great break. I'll see you in a second.
Yeah.
going to try to get these all onto the same level. So that means, unfortunately, I need to take, oh, I don't know if I can. Trying to figure out how to attach a panel to this one. So that it's on the same altitude as this. I'm gonna let's see if it's possible. Just gonna try using some big compression. Up this height. It's pretty sturdy. All right, a little bit awkward, but I'm afraid these are going to go flipping off while I'm painting, but like that.
Yeah. Oh. You my baby.
It's like using mouse straps to hold your painting in place. And if you're not on mute, we can hear you just in case you're not aware. All right, we'll see if that works. I'm gonna have to paint these areas out a little bit later. I'm trying to set up a second camera here so that we'll be able to see the palette later. Again, I won't be able to show the palette too well while working on this.
Michael, maybe it's me, but I'm having a hard time hearing you. It's like your voice is warbly.
Okay, interesting. How about now? Is that better?
I'm okay.
Yeah, I don't know if the plug got bumped a little bit as I was moving around. I'm going to try to fix the lighting a little bit, so please hold tight. I'll have to take a picture of the chaos of having all these cameras and lights and stuff from behind the scenes. All right, hopefully the light's getting a little better as I come in and add lighting.
Yeah, much better.
Woo, look at that, that's bright. How's that? Oh yeah, not even casting too bad of shadows. And then, does my hand seem to be in focus consistently?
Yes.
Okay, great. You can see how small it is. So let's try. Okay, So I do have my iPhone set up as a second camera. And so I will share that if you want to see a little bit more of the palette. Unfortunately, it won't show all of it, but I will tell you the colors that I'm using. And oops, got to put on an apron because I have a feeling this could get messy. All right, so this is going to be my attempt at doing 3 paintings at one time. Moving that over slightly. I can change this angle slightly. All right, and what I've done is just kind of collaged a couple pictures using Photoshop. I just made really kind of simple black and white references that I'll be using. Doing 3 paintings. Good, hopefully that doesn't go flying off. All kind of at the same time. Talking about design, painting from dark to light for the most part, big shapes, and they're all, the crazy part is all using semi-different color palettes. So I grabbed my color reference here that we've done in one of the other classes. And let's see. I think what I will do is the smallest one will be kind of the yellow earth tones. This one is going to be more on the reds. No, this one is going to be on the purple side. And this one is going to be more on the red side. And I'm going to start them with that. So this will be a red underpainting, purple underpainting, yellow underpainting, okay? And then I'm going to come back in, I'm going to bring my big shapes in, my design elements, and then going directly into it while it's still wet, I'm going to build those up using either very harmonious colors or colors across the color palette. It's going to kind of change. This is the colors I'll be using today. So it's a split primary, 2 yellows, 2 reds, 2 blues, and white. I also have a pile of brown paint, which I have no idea. It's just me cleaning up my palette. I think there's some burnt umber, some Indian red, and just kind of random other colors. So that'll be the brown. The brown is just completely just me cleaning my palette. I also added a little bit of a Payne's gray, which is a very blue, dark, blacky gray. We'll see. I'll just kind of use that to darken up some of the values a little bit and to cool down some of the shadow areas if I want cool shadows. And I will also try to have slightly different colors coming in. So if you are with me and want to take a quick note, my colors are titanium white. And this will show again on the second video. I've already got them laid out here below. I can kind of move the camera. I've got my big palette set up with the colors there. And that's where the color mixing will be done. And so I've got my titanium white on my far left. Underneath that, I've got my brown mixture and my Payne's gray. I've got Hansa Yellow Light, which is a transparent, kind of a lemon yellow, kind of like the cad yellow, but more transparent. Then next to that, I've got Indian Yellow, which when you lay it out kind of looks like a cad yellow medium or a cad yellow dark almost, but it's also very transparent. Sorry, I gotta put it all the way back there for it not to be blurry. I then have Cadmium Red Light, which is an almost orangey red. Then I have my Quinacridone Red. That leads me to my more purpley blue, which is ultramarine blue. And then I've got kind of a greenish blue, which is my manganese blue hue. So it's very much the split primary palette that I use all the time, except for the cadmium yellow medium is a Indian yellow. Just trying to find a smaller ruler so I can make nice straight horizon lines. Our little rulers are missing, so guess I'll be using my big T square to make nice, hopefully somewhat straight horizon lines as we build them up. But let's get the underpainting on. So I do my Indian yellow first, which is going to be on the right side. Just a tiny bit of Gamsol paint thinner. Make sure my soda water is not right next to my paint thinner so I don't drip into it on accident. Clean this brush. Dipping it into the Gamsol paint thinner, squeezing it out. Now I'm going to grab a little bit of my quinacridone red, touch of paint thinner. Oh, wrong one. That's supposed to go over here. Forgot the middle guy is purple. All right, so now I'm just going to add my manganese blue to this guy. So my purple is manganese blue and quinacridone red. Perfect. All right,
Did you just add some ultramarine blue?
No, it's the manganese blue turns towards, it looks like ultramarine when I add it to the quinacridone red. I'm just going to give them a quick little wipe down, just spreading them out and just making them so they're not so super slippery. Folding it over, so I'm kind of got a clean part of my paper towel. I'm going to definitely have to come back in and paint out where these compression tools are holding the canvas into place.
Will you paint the edges black?
Yes, I will. I almost always. That's just to keep harmony or consistency in mind. They look nice if you leave the raw wood, but and a lot of artists do when they paint on these kind of thicker surfaces. But I just do black so that they're consistent and so that I clean up the mess left by all the paint that's on there. Do the same to the yellow. Gonna need a new paper towel.
Pancakes. Oh, excuse me, Mike. Do those have 3 layers of gesso?
Yeah, and they're on panel, not on canvas. So these are on a gessoed panel. And I believe it's a birch board panel. I didn't double check on that, but I can really quickly here in a second. So they're really smooth.
Yeah, I've tried to work on them, and I think I didn't gesso it enough because they were too slick.
Yeah, and these will be pretty slick. So I'm kind of hoping that doesn't get in my way too much. And I can just kind of let that soak in and sit for just a second while we kind of figure out our next steps in our design. I'm just going to use kind of a big shop brush, and I'm going to basically look to coming in and getting my dark shapes in there. These colors that you're seeing now that are on there hopefully won't be too obvious. Like I won't show so much of that because I'm hoping to paint pretty thickly today and actually mix some paint, add some color and all of that. So
can you bring your camera down so we can see you mixing the paint at the same time? Because there's a whole bunch of wasted space up above.
good idea. Let's see if I can. I bet you're right. There we go. There we go. Look at that.
That's perfect.
Much better. You can even go to the left.
All right. How about that?
Great.
Very good.
Great. Can even bring these down just a touch more so they're even closer. I like to paint at about my shoulder height, so these will be a little bit on the lower side. I just find my shoulder doesn't hurt at the end of the day as much if I paint basically right, straight across, but let's see. So for my Indian one, I'm going to use some of this brown paint. Let's give ourselves a nice horizon line. This horizon is going to be kind of on the lower side. So this one's going to have more sky space. So get my nice horizon line in there. And what I'm going to have here is kind of a creek kind of coming into the page, almost kind of in the middle a little bit, but it's going to end up back here. So I'm just thinking big shapes, just looking for my design. And I'm going to be looking for basically 4 or 5 big shapes and just a couple values as well, 3, 4 values. So that's what I'm going to be looking for in today's painting. So look at that. We got a creek already. Bang. We also are going to want some trees on our horizon line here, but I'm remembering that this painting is going to be more about the sky. I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of red to these darks of the trees. Get some darks kind of down on their bases a little bit here. I'm going to get some darks into the shadow areas of these grasses a little bit, give them a little more sense of perspective, hopefully. All right. Very, very basic. Nice. What do I got? A couple, just 3 shapes there. And I will come back in and clean that out and make it hopefully a little more interesting as I build it up. I just want to kind of have the ability to step back and see if I like what I've got going. All right. For the purple one, I'm just going to let my brush remain a little bit dirty, but I'm going to grab some French ultramarine, some Payne's gray, some quinacridone red, and do kind of a similar thing. Okay, this one, my horizon line is going to be in the top third. So my creek is going to kind of lead up. This one's going to be more about the grasses. So this one's more about the sky. This one's going to be more about the grasses. So my straight horizon line, nice and important to me. And I have my creek. It's not too dissimilar. In fact, it might even be kind of based on photos of the same creek, I think. I paint this Beaverton Creek near my studio a lot. So now I'm just kind of looking for the bank line as it rolls back towards me. As it rolls back towards me. And there's nice tall grasses in this area. In fact, a lot of these tallish grasses are actually kind of an aquatic iris, which I really like. And I was thinking with this purple one, it might be really fun to bring in some greens and let the purple show through and actually hint at some kind of nice organic irises. So let's take that more towards blue. I'm already making big, messy piles, maybe even bring in a touch of yellow, touch of white. Ooh, very gray. What do I want? I want to bring that back towards blue. So again, I'm just thinking, how can I simplify these shapes the most? These grasses are nice and tall. Kind of obliterating the horizon line over here a little bit. And I want some kind of interesting trees. I'm going to get back towards my reds a little bit again. I want these to have nice canopy shapes over here, I kind of think would be more fun. You guys able to see that okay?
Yep.
Yep.
As it gets further away, it's going to get smaller. That's why I went with the smallest one to the medium to the largest size. So I've got a 9 by 12, 12 by 12, and a 12 by 16 up here right now. Let's bring some of these reds down a little bit. Just using my super shoddy, bad shape shop brushes. And I'm going to come back and lighten up the tops of these grasses quite a lot, and the tops of some of these trees probably as well. We'll see as I build up. Again, this is a very organic way. I don't have much planning in this. This is kind of the celebratory, you did a good job painting today, let's have fun and do some kind of almost instinctual way of painting. But what will be cool, I hope, is that we will see how I can build up a painting very quickly. What I'm going to do is, and what I am doing, is letting these colors soak in kind of a second as I move across from painting to painting to painting. They're kind of soaking into that gesso just a little bit. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back in with a big brush. I'm just cleaning off my horizon line maker tool here, my T-square.
So Michael, are you thinking about where the sun is located coming from in this as you're at this stage?
I haven't very much, no. But I should, and I will here in the next step for sure. I love backlit, I love side lit. I'm kind of thinking with this guy, kind of a side light from back over here, kind of coming across will be really nice, kind of showing the depth in these trees a little bit. I think this one, so nice and simple, maybe a nice backlight with some really beautiful sunset clouds or sunrise, whatever we decide. With this one, I may even do the sun has set in here a little bit, even maybe, not positive, we'll see. This one, I'm going to bring the horizon line closer to the middle, not quite all the way up to the horizon. And I'm going to have less trees in this one. It will be, or the trees will be smaller, further away, kind of more like hillsides back there. So this is my red one. Let's change these darks towards red a little more. I'm even going to bring in some of my cadmium red. I don't want to go right in the middle, so I'm going to go a little bit below middle. And this one's based a little bit more kind of on the view from the cabin, again, that some of you have been painting, just kind of as if it's that same kind of angle a little bit, but as if I were looking a little bit more to the left side. So we're going to have kind of some grasses kind of coming up through here. Got my bank. And my bank, and bank. And then the water really opens up back behind there. And over here, the bank is way back here where the lake kind of wraps around that side a little bit, and the trees are going to be a little closer over here. So we're going to have this reflection of the trees. So I'm looking for that. And then this area back here is pretty far back. So it's pretty small and kind of goes up a little bit. So all of these are basically done in 2 values at this point, just kind of getting my design in. Looking for kind of the structural elements that I will be building onto. This kind of overlaps there, overlaps here. And then of course there's the reflection of that land back there into the water back here. Admittedly, a little bit hard to see right now kind of what's going on. And I'm hoping I'll be able to clear that up but I'm thinking very abstractly at this time. Just kind of big, big light shapes, big, big dark shapes. Keeping things quite organic and loose. And I was thinking these could be fun, you know, with as far as color is concerned. I can bring in some flowers and foliage and different elements. Yeah, so I'm thinking this could be really a neat kind of, the sun is already set back maybe behind here, so this nice gradient of color in the sky. This one, the sun's going to be coming across. And let's do kind of a, you know, generic, or I don't know, generic, but a kind of more of a common Mike Orwick with the sun reflecting, you know, low horizon backlit there, kind of reflecting back into the water a little bit. How does that sound? Everybody okay with that idea?
Sure.
Sounds good.
So what I'm going to do is take a big brush. Just gotta make sure I got all the stuff out of it. You know, running my fingers across, it'll throw some hairs a little bit. And I'm just gonna softly brush these out so that I get kind of a nice soft gradated edge. And again, I'm just kind of trying to keep my paint a little bit on the thinner side right now so that I can build up my paint layers. This should be hopefully just kind of smoothing things out a little bit. I may have to come back in and carve out. Some of my shapes are kind of getting lost, like this creek kind of disappeared a little bit on us here. All right, so let's look at some of our shapes here. And in this time is when I can go through and edit. You can really, my trees and my tops of my grasses have really kind of blended together. So what I'm going to do, again, these are just notes for me at this stage. Most all of this is really going to get covered. So, you know, I can come in and mark it up and do whatever I want to kind of help me to see things a little bit better. So for this one, I'm going to come back in and I'm going to lighten my horizon line just a touch so that I can kind of see where do the trees. Yeah, very slick surface. So these are my trees that are the furthest back here. So this one I'm going to bring down to about here, and then it goes up, back down, and this tree is going to be my closest. So don't know if that's showing up at all. Let's do it a little more extreme where I'm removing some of the paint with my paper towel. Can you guys kind of see that?
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully my trees have a little elevation there. And this one I'm going to kind of draw in where the bank of this is. The bank back here. And it kind of comes back up in there. Again, these are just kind of notes for myself. Maybe bring back You're beginning to see a little bit of the kind of the tops of the grasses where the light might be hitting a little bit stronger, a little bit more. And I'm also pulling away a little bit of the paint because that way I'll be able to add paint to that to lighten it up and add color on the tops of the grasses. Again, I like to think of a Polaroid picture just kind of slowly materializing in front of me. I've got a rough idea, but I'm going to let it kind of develop. I'm going to use this. So again, I could do this much more scientifically, and I could be, you know, really having these well designed out and whatnot, or I can just kind of have fun and see how they want to develop. I'm going to bring these foreground grasses down just a little more so I get a little more feeling of the water back here. Now what I would do, or what I'm going to do, is step back and see, because when I'm up close like this, it's really hard to see if the designs are actually working and if kind of what I'm after. And what I'll do is use this time to kind of clean up a couple, make a little more space for mixing. Very easy to make a big mess very quickly and then have this little tiny work area. Even though I've got a great big palette to mix on, I can kind of paint myself into a corner. So I like to, as I'm taking a second to see if I like what's going on, I'll use that opportunity to kind of clean my palette a little bit, clean my working area. And the cool thing is I'll take my palette knife and I can scrape up my kind of spread out piles, and I can reuse that paint again. So I'll just make that into a nice pile of whatever color it ends up. Very dark, kind of purpley gray, almost brown, almost like the brown pile I already have. So remember to clean your area from time to time. Otherwise you'll just paint yourself into a corner or mix yourself into a mixing corner. And it's a lot harder to mix clean colors. All right, give me 2 minutes. I'm going to step back to the back, have a sip of my soda water, and see if I like where my designs are at, because it's very important that they feel right, because it's much easier to fix it now than it is to fix it later, right? Once I start applying thick paint and all my beautiful colors, I hope. Is anybody seeing anything really obvious about design or shape or anything else that I should be taking care of right now? bring this down. Let's open this water up a little.
Is the tree line in that yellow one too level?
Yeah, let's break that up. Let's bring an opening. Let's go ahead and clear cut back here. And then this is really flat, right? So what should we do here? Let's does that seem a little more pleasing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you want to do. You want to ask those questions now while everything's very fluid and very mobile.
Making that hole in the middle also infers that maybe that creek goes back there.
Yeah, absolutely it does, doesn't it? I think I can do that on all of these. I can kind of.
Yeah, especially the red one.
I want to have kind of a slow, two slow hills kind of overlapping each other. Maybe what I'll do is inverse this one. So it's kind of going back towards those trees. So it comes down. Yeah, I mean, it's almost like you have just a nice little eraser at this level, at this stage of the painting.
On the purple one, is that a creek or is that just a still body of water?
I want it to be a still, like a marshy creek. They're all pretty still water, all of them.
Okay, but it doesn't go back any further than what is showing?
The grasses are quite high in this. So I wasn't.
Looks like there's a little in the back along the tree line, maybe.
Sure could. Yeah, what if I brought some darks? So it goes here, and then let's let it do that. So we won't see the water. I mean, we could hint at it maybe right about here. But we're not going to see that much of it. It's going to be, the grasses are kind of going to overlap it a lot. So we can let a little bit of it peek through just so it invites the viewer to travel back there to it a little bit. Yeah, and I'll be able to bring some of that back. You know, it'll be just a little punchy hole of kind of reflected light more than, you know, actual detailed water back there. So I can hint at that. All right. So now what I kind of think I will do is somewhat build them all up together, but I kind of think I want to focus in because, you know, they're going to be slightly different palettes as I mix across. So let's think about this yellow guy here on the right side. Let's kind of work on them as we're going across. So how can I hold this and be able to see it? So we're using this palette and we're kind of using this color scheme. We're aiming towards the more yellows, getting in towards the browns. So we'll be mixing some of the blues, which we've already done to make the darks, but we're keeping it on the warmer side. It is about the sky, so we'll probably want some nice contrast. So some cool colors in the sky and then the reflection as well. And to make it feel warmer, I can bring some cools, some purpley, gray, blues into my trees. Will make it even feel that much warmer. So that's kind of my thought process for that. Let's also think design. So we've got our creek kind of leading back. What might be some kind of interesting things we can do to the sky? I'm just going to very lightly hint at a couple ideas. So We've got this creek going back. So if I wanted to continue that S turn, it's kind of going to come back out this way. So I'm going to kind of think this shape a little bit, right? To continue that. Oh, you guys can't see that. Sorry. That line there. I'm also going to I can bring back some lines this way, some lines this way, and bring a little bit of turn into it. So I know that's really hard to see on the monitor right now. I'm just painting with yellow on top of yellow. But what I'm doing is just kind of thinking, what are some of the design and shapes I can do in that sky to make it interesting, to give it some movement up here? Because again, this painting is so much about the sky. So I probably don't want to have a big, just boring open area and monochromatic. I probably want to add some other colors and stuff up there. So what I'm going to do, and what I'm thinking I will have, is my sun reflecting down in, and I'm going to bring the sun probably kind of into this area. Let's go ahead and mark it. I'll just take a little bit of paint thinner on a paper towel. Boom. I don't know, again, might be too bright. Yellow on yellow is hard to see on the monitor. And I can mark kind of my sun where it's at and my reflections. Can you guys see that where I just put the sun in a little bit, or took it out, I guess?
No. There, we can see it.
Yeah.
Okay, so this one I'll paint in the dark a little bit because, yeah, it's really hard for me to see now. It's pretty dark in here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my sun here kind of coming down. So I'm going to add some red and warmth kind of around that area. And these, again, still, I'm just kind of painting for me right now. These are just kind of markers for myself.
Cadmium red?
That's, what is it?
Is it cadmium?
It's a cadmium and quinacridone mix. The quinacridone is still very transparent, and I'm keeping it still quite thin. And so that will help me to warm that up. I'm going to go ahead and start mixing colors. And I want the sky is going to remain quite warm, but I think I will have it go towards kind of a gray, kind of a mauve towards the top. So I'm going to play up this. And I'm going to start, because I'm just going to trust this design. Again, if I weren't, you know, in class or showing it live or whatever, I would probably spend more time and sit back and really try to kind of figure this out. But because I just want to kind of keep painting and have fun, I'm mixing some white into this, and I'm going to let my paint get a little thicker. And I'm going to start using the paint as well to kind of start carving out some of the shapes. I'm going to let that color, and I'm going to try to keep my piles there slightly, so I'm not just mixing straight into the piles all the time, so that I can kind of see, and if I need to go back to those colors, they're still kind of there. I'm going to take that kind of pinky color that I just put, kind of a salmon, and let that start going towards yellow, a purer yellow a little bit, and a little lighter, a little whiter. Right now, I'm just kind of trying to make pretty colors with kind of pretty marks and get some movement. I'll be able to, once I get enough paint on here, I can begin kind of doing almost that kind of sculptural process that I like where I can move the paint. So remember, once you get the paint on, it's still very mobile. I'm going to bring some of that light down that's kind of showing through onto my horizon line, which got pretty high up there. And again, still just kind of using this as marks for myself. Hope I'm not blocking it too much. But once I start putting in my opaque color, you know, the thicker paint on top, I'm kind of free to just start building it. All right, so that kind of marks my horizon line, brings these, hopefully these trees back a little bit further. I'm going to go ahead and lighten these clouds a little bit more. So the sun is going to be, you know, semi-obscured. Trying to keep a color harmony going so that it's not huge jumps in my colors. You know, I can, but just know that if I go from, you know, pink to green all of a sudden, or pink to purple or whatever, anytime I do a big jump, that's going to draw my eye. So trying to retain. Now I'm just bringing in a gray. I grabbed a little bit of the Payne's gray. I'm going to grab a little bit of the manganese blue, and I haven't cleaned my brush much, so I'm going to mix that in, and it's going to kind of make a muddy color, but I think it'll have a nice harmony to that way. And I just a touch of paint thinner, just a touch, not much. And I'm just trying to get a read on how far can I go? How cool can my cools be? This will also help me to figure out my shadow colors a little bit.
Michael, as you get creative with the color, are you still painting what you see in the photo?
No, not at all.
As far as shape goes, not color, but shape?
If I had better photos, maybe, but no, this photo, again, it's just a collage of a couple different pictures. I just grabbed some trees, a creek, you know, this is 3 different scenes. I just kind of photoshopped in together. So there's not, and I did it literally 10 minutes before class started. As I was kind of like, well, I can't just make it up completely. That would be too weird and too not fair to you guys. So they're in there. There's a little bit of design that I'm kind of thinking of, because again, I'm trying to think of how to make the sky interesting. But no, I would rather worry that my design is good than trying to replicate anything in the photo. Just grabbing a clean, softish brush. And I'm just kind of softening these edges up here a little bit. Again, just trying to keep the focus kind of in where the sun's going to be. And also create a little bit of a gradation from down from the light to the dark. And I could soften as much or as little as I want at this stage. Bring some of those grays down into the water a little bit. That'll help the reflected warms of the grasses kind of play a little more nicely. I've got kind of an interesting circle going here, which I don't want it a circle right there. So just kind of being aware of that. So what I'm going to do is I kind of like that, but I want to counteract it by bringing some kind of a counter angle. Bring some more reds back in. I'm just going to bring those across the tops of these trees. And now I'm just letting the sky and the tops of those trees, I've kind of been protecting the trees a little bit, but now I'm just letting them touch so that, you know, it's not like a white line around it of canvas, or yellow, I guess it would be because of the underpainting. I'm just letting, again, playing, I'm always kind of, where can I have soft edges? Where can I have hard edges? How can I and because I'm going to keep building up my paint, I'm not afraid to kind of maybe overly soften some areas, because I know I can just come back in with some nice, thick, juicy paint and really help describe some areas. So very soft. Now what I'm going to do is come back in with my clean paper towel, and I'm going to wipe back in some of those clouds. And I'm hoping they kind of reappear a little bit. So let's bring back the sun. And what clouds in here might be picking up more of that direct sunlight? Let's say does that kind of make sense what I'm doing? Kind of going back and forth, kind of sculpting back in, kind of bringing things out, softening edges, hardening edges. And that's what I think of like the sculpting side. So I'm still, even though I'm putting in quite a bit of color now, I'm still really thinking big shapes, big colors. I'm still just kind of in my planning stages. But the cool thing is like I said, with the Polaroid picture, just slowly, hopefully materializing in front of me. Stepping back, making sure that all right. I'm starting to like it. I apologize that it's kind of probably hard to see on the monitors because these yellows and reds are pretty close to each other. So I'll definitely get a picture and post that so you can see a little better detail. And now what I'm going to do is bring the sky colors that I've got, and I'm going to use some of the paint that's on here and sculpt out a little more definition into the tree shapes. All right, before I get too far into these trees and how much detail I want in them and everything else, I'm going to go ahead and start bringing in some color and detail into the tops of the grasses. I'm still thinking kind of a harmonious into those yellows, but I want it to lean slightly towards green. So I'm going to mix my Indian yellow with a bit of my Payne's gray, which is a very bluey gray, dark gray. So it makes a very kind of a dirty olivey green. I don't know if it's kind of showing up. I can turn the light back on here. Wow, blast the sky out. So I guess camera's not quite able to see the difference, but you can see the green down here, and then I'll turn the light back off. And I'm going to bring that into the tops of the grasses. Still wanting to keep this painting pretty loose. Starting to build it up. You can see my pressure is changing. I'm softer touch, so I can just leave the thicker paint right on top. It is quite slick. Denise mentioned that. So this, maybe when painting like this, a bit of a canvas would be really nice, or a bit of if I had a rougher under gesso painting would be nice. So it would be grabbing the paint, because it's definitely very slippery, just kind of sliding back and forth on there. So I'm just really trying to keep a nice light touch.
And what paintbrush are you using?
This is probably a size, this is a 6 size flat. It's a hog hair bristle, so it's pretty firm. I could be using a nice soft brush if I really wanted it to just pet the surface, but I typically use hog hair for most of my painting, and then just really try to have a soft touch. What I'm also going to do now, and I'm again just kind of trying to get it all covered, and so I can get a feel, and then I can kind of come back and fine tune. Taking my Payne's gray again, and add a little white, make it into a lighter gray, and add a little blue, a little red, make it into kind of a purpley color. And I'm just going to create kind of a cool lighter gray that I'm going to use to push some of these trees back into perspective a little bit, so lighten them up. Just testing, that wasn't as light as I wanted it, so a little more white to it. I put on the light. You can kind of see it down here. It's almost a neutral gray. The palette that I'm painting on is a neutral gray, so it's pretty light gray. I'm just going to use that back here. To help push that back just a touch, hopefully. Again, just a nice light touch. It's just sitting on top of those darks that I had back there. As I come back across it, I'm beginning to blend. Go ahead.
Yeah, I can't quite see the value on the palette. Would that value be a little darker than the value you put on the top of the grasses?
It's darker, and it's a little bluer and a little cooler. Okay. So I'm thinking about the light. So the light's coming from behind those trees. So the side we are facing away from the light is going to be generally a little cooler. It's in a, it's not picking up that warm light. So I'm kind of thinking about that a little bit, and So just a little bit of cool will help offset some of the warm colors that I'm putting into the grasses and into the sky. So it's kind of a contrast of temperatures, the warm and the cool, a contrast of the colors, the blue versus the reds versus the greens, but it's all hopefully really staying close, kind of in harmony.
Okay, thank you.
Hoping. All right, well, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring some darks back into my grasses, into, again, the shadow side, kind of away from that light, and give a little bit of a firmer structure. So I'm just kind of looking into where the shadows are. And I can also use these darks to kind of help describe some areas where the grasses are kind of rolling back. So it's not really strong, but hopefully you can see that. And I may already, let's see, let's grab a couple Q-tips just for fun. And let's bring in a couple little negative shapes in the trees, not too much. Don't want to overly describe it, but it might be kind of nice to have a little bit of light shining through the canopy. Maybe some of the, and I got to be careful. I don't want them to become really regular, right? I don't want them to become redundant. So how do I make them irregular, keeping them nice and organic? And a lot of times if I do use a Q-tip, it does only make kind of the one mark over and over. So a lot of times I'll come back in and just kind of brush that out a little bit so that it's, so I could grab like a little brush, little tiny guy here. What's this, a size 2? And I can just kind of obliterate those edges just a little bit so they're not all the same Q-tip mark over and over. So you got to be aware when, you know, a lot of my students are excited about the Q-tip because it's fun to make those little shapes, but you just want to make sure that they're not over and over, not really regular. Now bring some of these reflected lines down into the water.
That's cool.
Sorry if you were talking to me, I didn't understand you. Okay, I think we're ready to move on to the next guy. We'll, you know, we can always come back. Maybe one more little band of light lower towards the horizon line. All right, purple. Let's go ahead and clean these piles up so I have an area for purple. I'm gonna just make it into my all right. Purple guy, let's slide him over so he's a little more in the camera. And I'm gonna step back again for one more minute, which I like to do, and give myself a second to think about what I want. My instinct actually is to reach in to my box of paints here underneath my palette and pull out a little bit of phthalo green. Phthalo green against purple is so beautiful, but I don't know if that's cheating since I haven't had you guys using phthalo green yet. What do you guys think? Phthalo green with purple, or should I can do it with my manganese blue, because manganese blue is actually a phthalo derivative. So anyways, I'm going to step back to the back of my studio, which is only 12 paces back, 10 spaces back. And I'm gonna look at it for a second and just kind of imagine different colors on there. And again, I think I want to hint at some irises growing in this one, some purpley irises. All right, you guys have any ideas for me? I'm listening.
No. I hold my counsel.
You'll do magic.
Gonna make me paint it on my own, huh? All right. This is too straight across, so I'm gonna break that up a little bit. The other thing I noticed when I stepped back is got the sun right here, need a clean Q-tip, and I'm gonna underlight this cloud, this kind of darker cloud. All right. Still just delaying painting on the purple guy. I haven't made up my mind yet, so what color would the sky be? And I said I was going to light it from over here, coming across. So the sun won't be in this painting. It'll be off to the side. And it's going to be coming through. Let's do a cool, misty morning with some purple irises. So I'm going to go to a gray blue in the sky, at least to start with. All right, that is definitely a gray blue. Let it get a little darker as it gets down. It's reflecting more of the sky that we're not seeing, so it can, maybe it's a little darker up above. I'll let it get a little lighter, a little whiter, maybe a little warmer as it gets towards the light source. So mix a little pink into that gray blue. These are just big, messy brush marks. I'm just loading some paint on there that I'll be able to manipulate as we get over there. Now getting back towards the pink, lightening that a little bit. All right, you guys can kind of see that gradation in the pinks to the gray blue.
Yeah, beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, feel free to take yourself off mute if you ever want to compliment it. Just kidding.
It'd be too often.
Oh, okay.
We'd have to say, oh my God, every 5 seconds.
Well, I hope that's true, but I'm a little more realistic. So that light that's coming across again, so we're always imagining the light's kind of, I don't know, I'm going to kind of put it like it's this, maybe a little higher than this circle, off to the left. It's coming through, and I'm going to actually let it pass through behind this tree on the right so that it's kind of illuminating back in this field where these trees are a little further back. So let's go ahead and do that. It's going to be kind of a cool, misty light, cool light. All the way back there. Maybe that'll even be water. It's so light. It's not going to be water though. All right. And it also brings some of that across, but we want it to get towards green. So it's so light there, but I want it to be green in the foreground to play against. So green will really play nicely. Green, blue, green will play nicely against the purpley just the purpley, bright purpley colors of the flowers that are growing along the swamp there. So I'm going to bring a touch of that. That will get obliterated and kind of mixed in. So again, those are just kind of marks for me. Also, I want to have some of that sky color coming down and affecting the kind of misty atmospheric feeling that I want down below, even though it's going to be changing colors. Hopefully that makes sense. Clean my brush a little bit. Let's yeah, it's fun and it's exciting, but making it all up as you go along is kind of a little bit intimidating. I'm not going to lie. Just, and I'm also thinking of like some of the beautiful Monet paintings I just saw in Chicago at the Art Institute. There's this, one of my very favorite Monets is there. And it's part of a series he did of these trees. I think it's on the Seine River, Seine, S-E-I-N, whatever it is. Seine, all right, the Seine River. Oops, a lot more light color on that than I thought. But they're so purple and soft and just gorgeous. I'll have to post a picture of my daughter all dressed up in this beautiful soft mauve dress, just standing in front of him. It's just so beautiful. Okay, so I'm gonna let that sit for 1 second while I mix my blue that I want in my grasses. So I've mixed a very, very strong blue right here. Let's see what happens when I flip on the light. Now you can see very, very strong. If I put that on there, it would look crazy. Way too strong, way too blue. So let's take it to green a little bit, but I definitely want it to be more on the blue-green side. And I'm also gonna add a little bit of that Payne's gray to kind of neutralize it. If it's still too strong of a color, I can actually bring in a little bit of red and neutralize my greens, mixing across the color wheel, right? So if my blue greens are a little too strong, by simply bringing a little bit of red in, it brings those colors towards the middle, more towards the neutrals. So I'm thinking about that.
Excuse me, Michael, did you start with manganese before you put the Payne's gray and white in?
Yes, I'm leaning towards the manganese on this one because that's the blue that I used to make the underpainting purple, was the manganese and the quinacridone red. So I'm definitely kind of, you know, again, just for harmony's sake, thinking that a little bit. Definitely this part's a little scary, just changing the whole color palette so completely from what was just on there with the underpainting, bringing in these gray, blue, greens. So I'm just kind of putting it towards the tops of the grasses, and then I'm going to bring those blue, gray, greens down into the mid, kind of, so they're not in the full shadow areas of the grasses because the light's kind of enveloping them because it's a soft, kind of a hazy light. And then I'll bring my darks back up, if that makes sense, I hope. And I'll probably have to light the tops of these grasses a little bit more too. So I'm just kind of thinking, what's the big base color? So I'm gonna have to turn on the light because I can't quite see the color I'm putting on there. So you can see how gray that is under the light. It's really a lot cooler than the underpainting, which can be kind of nice to let some of that warm underpainting show through. But I've got to be aware of it and not let it fight too much. Seeing what brushes I have out here at my disposal. I'm just going to take, I'm going to actually pull out another little, just kind of a little shop brush so that I can fix this area back here a little bit.
Michael, the painting you just finished is fabulous.
The yellow guy?
Yes. It's
thank
stunning.
you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I know it just kind of disappears under that light. What a big difference, right? Boom, boom. So yeah, that's the tough thing about painting on here is showing that change. But thank you.
Welcome.
I'm just looking at where do the bases of the trees go so that they read like they're in the right perspective, right depth. And again, I'll be able to bring back in my darks into these reeds and grasses here in just a little bit. I'm just trying to get my big shapes, my big base colors. So even though I'm applying my color, I'm still thinking design. I'm still thinking shapes. I'm still trying to make sure things aren't getting lost just because I've moved into the color phase. This part can be a little bit boring, I understand, to watch, where I'm just kind of going back and forth a little bit, a little slower. I'm going to darken this water a little bit like we saw in the cabin reference, just to kind of hopefully bring this area down here towards the viewer a little bit. Add a little more sense of perspective. Also trying to retain a little bit of that pink and purple that's underneath there. I don't want to completely obliterate all that and wash it all out. I notice that my creek goes back and I kind of lost a little bit of it. So I'm going to bring this edge up here. There we go. Back. So it's got a little bit of a turn still up there. Which of course will take some finessing. I can't just have a big fingerprint there. I'm going to go ahead and bring in some of the darks of the grasses, just so they have a little more form to them, but not too much. I actually kind of like the misty feeling throughout this at this point. And I'm going to definitely have to come back in and kind of cool down some of these trees. Kind of the same thing that I'm going to do with the grass. It's just a little bit cooler and lighter because they're going to fall back into the perspective a little bit more, hopefully. Is this making sense how I'm building this up, you guys?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
See how it's kind of sculptural and fun, and it's not like a one-way path. Like I'm kind of constantly seeing things, tweaking them, and I prefer to try to fix things that aren't looking right as I see them. It used to be definitely that I would go, oh, I'll get to that later. But then it's just wrong for a long time. And it just makes it tougher to move forward. So I try to fix as I'm moving along. And generally, like I say, fixing earlier in the painting is easier than trying to go and do big fixes later. And whenever I get lazy and I'm like, oh, I'll get to it, I'll do it later, I just try to remind myself, I love painting, I hate fixing. Just do it while the fixing's easier. Bring back a little hint of water. Where did we think? It's kind of like, so the creek's turning slowly, kind of goes back here, and we're going to bring it back to about here. I don't know if you're able to see that on the little monitors or not. So there you can kind of see the little water hole. And I'm just trying to make sure it's in the right, like if I put it too high, you really wouldn't see it. I want it to be kind of obliterated, you know, like the grasses are growing in front of it. So it's just barely there. The viewer just kind of barely sees it. These trees are all still quite warm, but what I'm going to do first before I come in and cool them down is I'm going to warm up my sky just a touch. I'm going to add in a little bit more light. On the right side as it's coming across. So it's kind of right there. I'm also using some of the light that's in, or that color that's in the sky to kind of come back in a little closer to the trees, kind of shaping some of those edges a little bit. Maybe making them a little more interesting. Couple little sky holes. I don't want to overdo it with the sky holes. It's really easy to overdo it. Even these two right here, they become very redundant. So I'm going to kind of, don't want them to be just two dots. I want them to be different dots, different shapes. And let's go ahead and bring one nice little wispy cloud across, maybe that's catching some of that light. Can you kind of see that a little bit? Just to kind of break that gray area up above a little bit and make it a little bit interesting. Maybe I can even reflect that guy a little bit down here. All right. So that kind of gives me a better idea of how things are feeling. So now I'm going to have to come in and kind of cool down and change some of these trees so that they're not all just warm underpainting purple color. I'm going to let some of that show through and I'm going to use some of that, but I got to definitely cool down. So I'm going to bring in a little more of that Payne's gray, a little more of my blues. I'm going to mix a little bit of that with my back sky color. If you can kind of see them, just kind of dipping it into there for these far back trees. And I'm going to go, again, I'm thinking the shadow side is away from the light coming through. So I'm going to kind of so you can just see I just kind of dabbed it in there right now. And I'm going to go ahead and grab a clean brush. It'd be nice to have a soft brush, but I'm being lazy right now. And plus all the cameras are blocking my ability to get to my brushes underneath. So I'm just going to grab a hog hair bristle. It's kind of a burly one. It doesn't have a good shape. And I'm just going to lightly soften that, just really a light touch. Again, just pushing those trees back, just like we did in the yellow painting. Let these edges here get a little softer back here, because again, all that haze that I've been hinting at, would definitely be obliterating these edges. I wouldn't probably have hard edges far back. Remember, we pretend we're looking through like gossamer layers. All right, so now we're going to get to a darker as we get towards these trees. Change back to my brush I was using. I'm going to darken this blue. I could warm it a touch. I can even go bring in a little red, but I just want it cooler than it is here. And I'm going to let little bits of that warmth show through nicely, like little bits of light are passing through these trees. Maybe some of the light that's enveloping in this atmosphere is kind of bouncing down and back in. I'm going to let it get a little darker as it gets further away from our light source. And that's just kind of a stylistic thing a little bit there. Grab my blending brush a little bit, and I'm just going to kind of merge those edges so I don't just have real obvious dark, cool brush strokes against warmer underpainting brush strokes. And again, trying to preserve just hints of that warmth underneath. A little bit strategic that will come, you know, from time painting and just kind of thinking about it, maybe time observing how light travels through plants and trees and different types of foliage at different times of day and different types of light conditions, soft light versus hard, crisp light. So when you're out in nature, it is definitely worthwhile to observe. You know, you don't always have to be painting to be observing. You don't always have to be taking photos to be observing. Just kind of literally just sitting there, watching the light change, watching the atmosphere change, watching the weather elements change, and just, how would I paint this? What would I do? How would I capture that? What's going on here? Why does that appear warmer or cooler or brighter or darker? What's going on in there to cause the effects that I'm seeing? Sometimes I've learned the most when I'm not painting, when I'm just observing. Plus, that way nobody can ever tell you you're being lazy. You can just say, no, I'm not. I'm observing. I'll do the dishes later. All right, well, we are past time in class, but I'm going to keep painting. So you guys are welcome to, you know, hopefully it's all recording and I'll have it up later. I am recording the second version. I hope it's still recording. And
Yes.
so you'll be able to see a slightly different angle, not too different. And I guess we figured out how to show the palette, so that's nice. I was a little bit worried about that. At least most of the palette, and I'm definitely working mostly in this quadrant, so you can see it. But anyways, I'm going to keep painting, so you guys are more than welcome to hang out with me, but you won't hurt my feelings if you have to go do the dishes or go live a life or whatever it is. I kind of like what we got going on now, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to see what happens. Let's get a little crazy. Let's bring this over a little closer to the camera. And I'm going to bring some hints of flowers. This would be really a good time to have a good reference. So if you, that pile's too big. I'm just going to make them up. Not what I would suggest you guys do, but I'm just going to bring some nice fuchsia colored bright purples kind of in here, hinted, and see what happens. I don't want them to be screaming out. The light's not strong in this painting. It's a very subtle, soft light. So I've got to be aware of that. I can't just all of a sudden throw, you know, fluorescent pink into it. The painting just can't handle that. So you have to be aware of that, you know, constantly. How much can this painting hold? You know, how much color can it hold with what I'm building? How much, you know, how extreme can I get? So I'm going to put in a couple darks of the flowers to kind of place them. And then I'm going to have a couple of them catching a little more light. So these are almost not visible to you. Let's turn on the light again. And they'll be more visible once I bring in the lighter version of them. I'm going to have them a little more sporadic towards the front, like you just can't see too many of them. And then as we go towards the back, I may be able to have more of a field of them. I don't want to overdo it. I don't want to go crazy, even though they're pretty flowers. They're wild. Right now, I just picked up a filbert, really long bristles. It's going to help me just stay nice and organic, hopefully, and loose. He says, hopefully. Just kind of thinking iris shape, but barely. I'm not going to, you know, paint out any irises for when I don't have the reference for it right now. But I'm just kind of thinking that kind of cool dress-like shape that they make. I don't want to make them too sporadic, and I'm already starting to do that, so I should probably kind of bunch them up in a couple areas a little more. All right, so that's my dark and my medium, and now I'm going to bring just a touch of light and see if I can get away with it. I have no idea. I might be really asking for trouble if I get too light with them, any of them. All right, so here's the crazy color. Let's see if we can get away with it. I don't know. What do you think? Does that look all right, or does that look too bright? What I can also do is bring in, let's brighten some of the greens on top of the grasses, just a touch. So I can either darken those, or maybe I can bring in some nice greens to play off them a little bit. Just experimenting. Can always knock them back down, wipe them back off.
Is that phthalo that you're using?
No, I didn't end up using any phthalo. So the manganese is a phthalo derivative, so it can be pretty bright green. And I think if I went with a phthalo, I would just get out of control too quick. Phthalo is so scary for me. And yeah, I don't know if you can see the little bits of green or not that I'm kind of highlighting, but I think it is making it so that the bright purples all of a sudden are a little more harmonious. Again, this one may be harder to see until I get a good photo of it for you guys. Another trick you can use though for the grasses and stuff is grabbing the back of your paintbrush. Oftentimes I will stick my back of some of my paintbrushes into the pencil sharpener. Another tool that I use, since we eat so much Thai food, is this is a chopstick. And I just sharpen down the ends of it and can use that to just kind of bring in hints of grasses if I want. It might be a little too extreme right now, but.
Watching you do this, for me, what was surprising is the perspective. Once you put those flowers in, then it's like, oh, those are closer because they're kind of big. And so where I was thinking was the middle of the field, and then you'd put it there, it's like, oh, okay, I see those flowers are now closer. It's just interesting to watch the perspective change as you put those flowers in.
That is interesting, yeah. I'm glad, thank you. So those lines I just drew in, I don't really like. They're too strong, so maybe I'll let a little hints of them show through, but I'm coming back in with some darks and over the tops. But it's also a great way to kind of sign your painting. If you're painting like this, wet into wet into wet, as I can just very quickly come in and scratch my MO if I want to. Okay, well, you know what? I'm going to let this guy sit now for a little bit and get over to red guy. And what I think I may do actually is shift the yellow painting over here so that I'm not worried about these crazy mousetrap clips. I'm afraid they're just going to go flying off. So strong. So give me 1 minute again. I apologize for all the little breaks, but that's how it works.
Michael, those first two are absolutely stunning. They're beautiful paintings.
Thank you so much. You'll be able to see them in person this weekend.
Are they going to be at Art in the Garden?
Yep.
Good.
Yep, they just let me know that I can't have any prints there. So it's kind of like, uh-oh, I don't have any paintings for sale right now.
That's a terrible thing. People love your paintings and they love to buy them there.
Yeah, no, I sold I think maybe all of them last time. So
I know, I bought one.
You bought a purple one, didn't you, last time?
Yep, I did. I love it.
Kind of thinking about that one when I was painting this one, so that's kind of fun. All right.
Is that in Clark County?
No, it's in Portland.
Yeah, in Portland. It's a little fundraiser for Oregon Society of Artists, actually. But it's, yeah, it's a fun little event. Not very many. It's tiny.
It's tiny. It's very tiny. And it's at a private home. And hopefully we'll just have lots of people who will give us lots of money.
There you go. That's always nice too. I like both ways. I like it when nice people support the Oregon Society of Artists, and I like it when they buy my paintings. So
I think both are really important.
So this easel that I'm messing with right now is made by the same company, American Easel, that makes my palettes. And so I buy a bunch of these little, they're really inexpensive. And they work well when I have students in here, which is almost never. And when my daughter has friends over painting and stuff. But they're, unfortunately, they're only, you can only paint at certain heights, which I find a little bit difficult. But they make some really nice products and I love their panels. So American Easel out of Salem, Oregon. All right, well, now red. Yeah, I am going to need a 5-minute break though. Is everybody, I don't even know if I've got any students still paying attention or on besides, but are you guys, for those of you that are here, I do need a 5-minute break. Get a little more soda water here. And if that's okay.
Yeah,
right back.
we'll be waiting.
5-minute break, 5-minute break.
I sometimes feel almost euphoric when I see him painting. It's just it's so much fun.
It's gorgeous.
It really is like magic.
It truly is. I sometimes get that feeling once in a while, maybe twice a year when I'm painting. I don't know if anybody else feels that way either.
Just have to be able to endure the duds. Gail.
What?
You just have to be able to endure the duds.
I'm sorry, I can't understand.
I said you have to endure the dud painting.
Oh, yes, without question. I think that's true. And that's the horrible thing. And the other day I was painting over a painting that I gessoed over. And the instructor I was with said, Gail, for heaven's sakes, don't you dare do that again, because it had ridges in it, even though I had sanded over it and I thought I was being very careful, and oh my God, the painting was ruined because I didn't do it properly. That was a dud, truly a dud.
I have tons of them. I just put them all in my storage shed.
At least you have a storage shed. I'm in a condominium, and so I really need to have a bigger spot.
Yeah, painting takes up a tremendous amount of storage space.
Yeah, I agree. I'm gonna go get a sandwich.
Good idea.
I actually went to a masseuse yesterday, thank goodness.
I did that once.
Yeah, it was nice.
Yeah, she had hot stones and hot towels and soft music and incense and scented oil. It was a total surround sound experience.
Yeah, this was not that. This was just because in Chicago, we were walking an average of 7 miles a day and our feet were just killing us. So my daughter loves little massages. So we went and it was actually what is it? Reflexology.
Oh, that's really good for your feet.
Oh, it was wonderful. Especially because at a wedding, you know, you got to wear dress shoes, which I just hate.
When I get a pedicure, they do the reflexology.
Oh, wow. We've got the wrong people around here. Okay, I have no idea what to do to this guy. I know it's going to be reddish because it's red already.
It's gorgeous.
I kind of think I would like to make it appear as if the sun has set below the horizon line. And that's oftentimes when you can get the best colors in your sunsets is right after the sun sets. It's funny when you go to the beach and everybody just gets up and leaves the second that that little green stripe appears. And I think it's the next half hour is oftentimes the best, depending, of course, how many clouds are out at the coast and everything else. And let me go ahead and clean up a little bit. Thank you again for your patience. I guess that's the downside of painting 3 paintings in different colors is the mess. The mess in between. I'm wondering what's going to happen as I scrape up these iris colors. What? Ooh, yeah. Nice purple. Look at that. You guys see that?
Ooh, yeah.
Let's use some of that. And I want this, they're all very, very calm. Let's, what do I have here? I've got about 10 dirty brushes. So let's use some of that blue gray that happens to be on this brush. Let's just clean my brush by using it.
Yeah.
No paint will be wasted today. Whoa, that's cool looking already. That's what it looks like on the monitor with that purple edge is not in the paint.
Yep, gorgeous.
But maybe it'll give me a cool idea. Yeah, wow, I love that purple. I wish it was in my painting. It's just appearing on the monitor. The magic monitor in this instance.
Right now, Michael, that color comes across as a periwinkle blue.
Isn't that wild? Yeah, I wish that was the color I just put on there because it's not. Let's see if I, boom.
Oh.
That's wild.
Yeah, that's nice. That's getting scary.
Whoa.
That's probably a little closer to the truth of what's on my palette or on my canvas. I guess we'll do it this way so we can see it a little bit better. But I am going to use some of this, let's just call it periwinkle purple. I'm just going to kind of load this up. There's quite a bit of paint going down. I'm going to manipulate it once I kind of figure out what it is I'm actually doing.
Yeah.
I'm going to save some of that color that's on my palette knife because I'm going to want that to come back into the hills in the back. I'm just going to warm my red up a little bit more, or my pink, I guess. I'm going to warm my pink up as I get down towards the, ooh, that is not warmer. I just went, you got to remember that white is a color in a way, like how it cools things down. It doesn't just lighten, it cools. And if I don't want that, I have to be aware of it. As I'm getting down towards the horizon, I'm going to let those colors get a little warmer. Let's take that towards yellow, kind of an orangey, my favorite color, right? The salmon colors. It's definitely my go-to addiction color. So it's a big sky. Held my breath that whole time, I think. All right. I've got some paint on there now. I'm going to go ahead and take my brush, going to wipe it down a little bit cleaner so that I can manipulate and move some of that color. And warm up a quadrant of it. Again, the sun is just kind of set, bang, back underneath here. So it's set down behind the haze. I'm thinking about Michelle's beautiful painting she did of the sunset, sunrise, whatever it was, with the marsh that she did, and just some of those beautiful pinks and yellows and oranges going up into the purples. I'm doing it completely different because I'm doing it in an additive style versus a subtractive style like she did. But anyways, that is the great thing about painting in a group, is we are all learning and borrowing from each other, you know, both the positives and the negatives. But you guys are, you know, doing such fun stuff. It's really interesting to see. And again, it was your guys' comments that got me to paint like this today versus the plan, which was just to kind of go back in and and color up some of the paintings that I had previously done.
The middle painting now next to those two vibrant color ones almost looks black and white in the monitor.
Yeah.
So quiet and cool. And that's, I mean, what fun, right? I mean, what difference. They're all moody in their own way. They're all atmospheric in their own way. But yeah, what a big difference. And it's going to be fun because I think they can show with each other. You know what I mean? I think they still are related, but at the same time, they definitely have their own personality, I hope. So I don't want to just have stripes, you know, across, even though they are lying pretty flat, these clouds. I'm going to give them a little bit of emotion, or just motion, just movement.
I love the yellow that you put in.
Yeah, just a little hint, like, does it feel like the sun is already kind of set, but it's still just a little bit illuminating? I could probably even calm that down just a touch so it's not so big, making it, again, even a little more special. Now I just gotta make sure I'm not getting it too spotty. And my brush is really, it is quite dirty. I do have one last clean, biggish brush, so maybe I'll see what I can do with that, just to kind of blend my shape so it's not too spotty, and then I can come back in and carve just a little bit of detail. Let's get that a little pinker. Let's come back down to the water. Back.
So the big smoothing brushes are pretty dry, right?
This one was completely dry, completely clean.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and that I was kind of like, yeah, I have one, because I don't know. These are all my dirty brushes so far, which, you know, I just have to be aware of what colors are on them as I reach down to use them. I'll bring these grasses back up over the tops of the water that I'm kind of putting in there. I'm just kind of trying to get my big water shape. Okay. Let's get these darks a little more smoothed out. And I may be over smoothing, so I can come back in and bring in some hints of stronger clouds sitting kind of atop, or, you know, highlights, or whatever I want to do with them as I build this painting up. I'm going to go ahead and slide this painting over to the left a little bit, because it's I'm almost kicking the camera where it's at. So hopefully that works out okay. Okay, so
oh, that's wild.
What do I want to do with our darks? The sun is set behind, so things can really get quite dark. I could really push this towards the darks a lot. I've got to figure out, you know, do I have much atmosphere? Is this really soft light? I kind of like this really soft, almost lost edge that I have here. And so I may try to kind of preserve that a little bit. And I gotta just kind of remember what my initial drawing was. So what I'm gonna do is not too dissimilar from this guy. I'm gonna bring in some of the bluey grays. Again, the sun's from behind, which kind of is in most of these paintings, I guess. A little more from the side in this one, but it doesn't really matter because it's such a low light, or kind of black and white green one over here. So let's go ahead and put in that purple that I saved on my far back here. So I'm going to darken it a little more than the sky purple was. And I'm going to use that on my background hill. And I have this interesting little piece breaking through there. So I'm going to actually bring that down as a tree that's kind of in front. So I'm going to try to protect that a little bit. I think we can even get a little darker than that. And again, you guys, thank you for letting me change the plan of this class. Thank you for, understanding me being a little bit beat up from our travels. Again, it's not the first time in this class, but letting me just kind of change and modify, again, based on kind of your feedback of what's working in the class, what you're understanding, what you're not, and then also what, different ways of it describing kind of the process a little bit. So hopefully everybody's enjoying this and learning, and you don't feel like I just went off straight into left field for no reason.
I feel like I'm reaping the benefits of you seeing all those Monets.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, a little more color. Well, except for this guy, evidently. Which is funny because it's actually really quite colorful. The one that appears black and white right now is really quite colorful, but just not compared to these. It's just not as bright. There's a lot of subtle grays, which are kind of my favorite challenge oftentimes. So there you can kind of see how that changed, just cooling it down, leaving that. I'm going to get these guys nice and kind of dark. Still just adding kind of to the purples. I'm going to blue it a little more, but I'm going to really let some of that warm light show through. So I'm going to be very protective here. I'm going to start at the base, the bottoms of these trees, and then I'm going to pull that up so that where the trees become more spindly, or where the foliage is letting more of the light show through, I'm just going to let some of those warms peek through, I hope. The plan versus the execution, we'll see. Yeah, you see how all of a sudden the warm kind of penumbra, or whatever the area around the cools, even appears more warm once you put a cool next to it.
That's really an important thing to see you do.
Well, you're very good at that already, but I appreciate that. Yeah, it's been so fun painting for as long as I have at OSA, instructing for as long as I have, having, a number of students that I've been very fortunate to watch grow and watch their styles evolve and watch their careers evolve. And yeah, I take great joy. I would like to say pride, but that makes it sound like, I had a lot to do with it. But I really enjoy and appreciate being able to see what people are doing with their paintings, and as they continue to push and learn.
Michael, it has to do with the fact that you are a very good teacher.
Oh, that's so nice of you. Thank you so much.
I second that, Dale.
Well, it's up to you guys. You guys can watch me all day, but if you're not pushing and trying and experimenting, and you know what I mean, you got to get out of your comfort zone. And you guys tell who is, and and again, it's not instantaneous. It's not, one class. There's no magic lesson and all of a sudden you can paint. There's, I hate it when I see videos advertised like that, like learn the secret, learn the, the thing other painters won't tell you, it's all crap. You've got to paint, you've got to try, you've got to, and it's all our own styles. And it just takes a while for that to reveal itself.
I think you're right on this last painting that I did, trying to get away from copying your demos and do my own compositions. And I was trying to figure out the perspective on that one. And I can see where it needs to be adjusted on the next painting. So every time you do a painting, you learn something that you didn't do that you could do on the next one.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. Anytime, Gail, I heard you talking about that, when a painting's not working, or, anytime that it's comforting. Again, I know I've said this before, but just reminding yourself that it's not about this painting. It's wonderful when a painting works out, but every painting is about the next painting. And we can learn so much from when they don't work out as well as we would hope, if we allow ourselves to, if we're able to take that little bit of time. What I'm going to do real quick here is come in and bring in my darks so that I can see my form in this foreground kind of grassy area bank. So I'm just going to kind of add in the shadows, give me my structure for me to dress up and color and add my hopefully nice brush strokes or whatever in it. But I want to, what's the underlying structure under here? So you can kind of see by all of a sudden throwing these darks in, all of a sudden an illusion, a semblance of depth and perspective, hopefully should start to appear. Just going to add some darks down into here. And then what I'll do is I will break these big brush strokes that I'm making, where I'm just kind of putting down big masses of dark, and I'll bring some, hopefully just do a lot of the work with nice brush work. Okay. What color do I want the tops of these grasses? I got to kind of think, okay, what's my light source? It's very dark. There's no light hitting it directly. So it's just the light that's literally coming from the backside of the earth or the side of the earth. There's no light, and it's coming up, it's hitting the sky, and it's reflecting down. So it's a very soft, muted light. It's not, nothing really direct. If I came in here and made it very detailed and very strong, like a strong light source, it just would not look right. So I've got to be aware of that. I've got to think, what's my light source? Where's my light source? And what's my light source? Is it a strong direct light, or is it a cool, calm, soft light? Is it an overcast day? Whatever. Just keeping that in mind.
Would the brightness in the stream bounce up onto those grasses next to the stream?
Only directly on the sides and underneath and into the shadows. But no, it's not going to bounce up and back on top. It can bounce off and over. Like I could have that light bouncing and lighting very light, subtly the undersides of these trees and stuff if I wanted to. But yeah, that's a great question. And I'm kind of thinking kind of a pale green. So I'll go to the gray first. So this is still a little bit more on the shadow side. I plan to lighten the grasses a little more than this, but again, now I'm just kind of creating my mid values. They're not the lightest lights and they're not the darkest darks. Even though there's not a strong light, there's going to still be a gradation in the lighting, but it's going to be a lot closer together. So my lights are not going to be so much lighter than my mids, and my mids aren't going to be so much lighter than my darks. So everything's going to be pretty close, pretty calm. And if it's too boring, I can come back in and I can adjust it. All right. So now for the pale green tops. If only I could go study and look at Monet's every week. It's funny, like there's so many artists, you know, in the museums and stuff. And of course I love, you know, so many of them, but there's so many that I kind of look at them like, man, they feel a little bit overrated to me, but definitely not Monet. There's just infinite amount of knowledge and information, and just, again, the joy that he was painting with and applying that paint.
Excuse me, everybody, I have to leave.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing your picture.
Thank you very much, Michael. This is really wonderful.
I will see you next week.
Okay, thank you.
Class already. Can't wait. So very subtle, very soft. I can come back in and I can add detail and stuff, but I kind of like these gradations that I've got going for the most part. Did get a little mushy, so I will definitely want to come back in and solidify some areas, maybe draw in some nice pronounced grasses or a cattail or whatever. I'll do the same with the banks and the things. I'm having a hard time seeing it in this light. This is really, really glary over here to me. I'm very hesitant to paint into it just by the angle I'm having to stand. But I want to bring, you know, kind of a hint of a bank back there. That was just put in blind. I have no idea what I just did just because of the glare. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it here. I think a 4-hour class is plenty. I've tortured you guys long enough, and I need a little bit longer of a break, maybe a bite of food. And then I'll come back up and kind of finish these and take some photos and post them. And anyways, you guys were fantastic. I really appreciate your patience and everything else. Anyways, I will see you guys next week. Keep up the good work.
Thank you so much, Michael.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Now I'm just coming over to sit down, but whew, that was tiring, but fun.
You're gonna sleep well.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. Yeah, and I didn't even drink my coffee that class. So guess you
Yeah.
guys kept me awake and kept me going. And I'm gonna remove spotlight so we can all see each other. All 6 of us that are left. Awesome. Thank you guys very much. And yeah, I can't believe we just did 4 hours of hanging out and painting together. I will try to get this posted. 3-hour classes take forever to download. I don't even want to think about how long it's going to take me to do 4 hours, but I really look forward to our final class. I will paint into some of the paintings that we did and show you about painting basically onto a older or a dry painting. So that will be it. Thank you guys. All right, take care.
Bye.
Thank you.